It's time for Intelligent Machines. Hello, everybody. Jeff Jarvis is here. So is Paris Martineau. As usual, we're going to start the show with an interview with one of the smartest people in the world. And this guy's the real deal. Stephen Wolfram, next on Intelligent Machines.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Intelligent Machines, episode 808, recorded Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. Stephen Wolfram. It's time for Intelligent Machines, the show where we talk about, well, intelligent machines with Jeff Jarvis, professor of journalistic innovation emeritus at the, I better do it now, Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at this University of New York. Now at Montclair State University and SUNY Stony Brook. Great to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you.
Also, Paris Martineau reports at theinformation.com, where she covers youth matters, among other things. You do everything, really.
Among other things, yeah.
Yeah, among other things. Hey, I am so excited about our guest today. Stephen Wolfram, one of the smartest people in the world. He was a child. I did not know this about you, Stephen, and I hope it's not wrong because I asked AI. A child prodigy at the age of 15. You published your first scientific paper, studied at Eton and Oxford before earning your PhD in theoretical physics from California Institute of Technology at the age of 20. A MacArthur Fellowship genius at 21. Most people wait till their 40s. And of course, the creator of Mathematica, Wolfram Alpha, and the Wolfram Alpha language. It is such a, and the author of many seminal works, not just in physics, but many other subjects. I think cooking, yes?
No, not cooking.
No? Okay.
No, I don't know how to cook.
When is the cookbook coming out?
Deficits.
We want to get you on because this show is about AI. You've been, thinking and working in the field forever. What was that first paper when you were 15? What was that about?
It was about particle physics. In those days, particle physics was the most exciting thing going on, just as maybe people would say machine learning is the most exciting thing going on now.
Yeah.
And there were things that had been discovered, and I was trying to figure out what was happening with them. I have to say, my first paper was not my best, and it's
only uphill from there.
Yes, right. It's one of the things that was trying to figure out things about what electrons are made of, and I had kind of an idea about that. And I mean, this is maybe a technical point, but I kind of thought maybe electrons are 10 to the minus 18 meters across. Now, I finally think I do have some understanding of what electrons are, and I think maybe they're 10 to the minus 81 meters across.
Wow.
So it's kind of a flip around in the exponent, which is, anyway. So yes, that was my first paper about particle physics.
No one should peak at the age of 15. You should be grateful that you did not.
Indeed.
Right?
Yes.
It would be very depressing to have peaked at the age of 15. You said something interesting, though. First of all, you called it machine learning, not AI. Is that a conscious choice?
Well, AI has been harder to define. I mean, back when I started building big computer systems to do kind of science type things, which was late 1970s, people were saying at the time, when you can do math by computer, then we'll have AI. And then the goalpost moved, and that wasn't what AI was supposed to be about. So it's I think machine learning is a bit more, AI has sometimes been the thing which is just a bit out of reach to computers.
Yeah.
Which is, makes it a little hard to define. And now we've got AGI, which is again, just out of reach to computers type thing. I don't think it's a well-defined concept. So yes, I think the thing that one could sort of distinguish is things which are sort of defined computationally. That's one whole branch of effort that I've spent a lot of my life on, and things which are specifically built using things like neural networks and kind of the traditional tools of machine learning. And that's a different branch that happens to be doing really well right now. I mean, I started playing around with neural nets back in, I think 1981 was the first time I tried to simulate a neural net. It didn't do anything interesting. And I thought for years, nothing interesting is going to happen with neural nets. And then, 2011 comes around and really interesting things started happening with neural nets. I still think, even now, I'm really curious, why do the things that happen with neural nets actually happen? Why do they work? And that's much less clear. And I've tried to figure out some things about that from a science point of view recently.
Yeah, I remember your article in 2023, which turned into a book, talking about LLMs and why they don't do math, and proposing that maybe they should pair with Wolfram Alpha to let the Wolfram Alpha do the mathematics. Why is Wolfram Alpha good at math? How does Wolfram Alpha work differently from LLMs?
Yeah, so I mean, what we're doing is to compute using definite algorithms that we explicitly write. And taking data from the world that we've kind of gone to the trouble of explicitly curating. Sort of the big idea of machine learning is you give the machine a bunch of examples of what you want it to do, and you hope that it will kind of figure out what to actually do in any particular case. So it's not the kind of thing where you're setting up sort of this rigid structure that the thing is going to follow. And for some things that we do as humans, kind of doing it roughly right and doing it across many different situations is exactly the right thing. There are other things that we want to do where we need to do sort of a precise computation. You need to build up the tower very tall, and that's something that's not a thing that kind of the neural net kind of machine learning approach is really so suitable for. I mean, it's like if you want to get it 80% right, then using machine learning is a great thing. If you want to get it 100% right, then using machine learning is usually not the right thing. That's a case where you need to have sort of this precise sort of tower of functionality that you build up.
Is that because of the probabilism that large language models have been built on and machine learning is built on versus the kind of determinism of the explicit programming you talk about?
I think that's one way to put it. I mean, I've been trying to understand what is one actually doing when one is doing machine learning. In other words, you give a machine, 10,000 pictures of cats and 10,000 pictures of dogs. And then you say, now I'm going to show you a picture. Is it a cat or a dog? And, then you showed a picture of a dog in a cat suit. What's it going to do? Well, what it tends to do is something that is fairly similar to what humans do in a situation like that. The whether it agrees with what humans say it very often will. Why does that happen? We don't have a precise sort of definition of why that happens, and what the boundary between catness and dogness is for the machine. But I think this question of the analogy that I've found useful, that's sort of come out of some science I've done in this area, is let's imagine that your task is to build a wall. Well, one way you can do that is you make these very precisely engineered bricks and you set them up in this very kind of organized way, and you've built this wall, and you can keep building it, and you can keep building it very tall. Okay, that's plan A. Plan B is you see a bunch of rocks lying around on the ground, and as you build your wall, you find a rock that's roughly the right shape, you stick that one in, you keep building that way. That second thing is pretty much what machine learning is doing. When you train a neural network, what it's doing is it's finding these kind of lumps of computation that happen to fit into what the training looks like and so on. And so it sort of puts that rock into the wall and keeps building. And it's something where you can build the wall to a certain height just, with these randomly shaped rocks, but it's not something where you're going to be able to sort of systematically build it up very tall. I think that's perhaps a way to think about what's going on. But in the end, it's that kind of, machine learning is getting things roughly right. And that's a big achievement. In many domains, getting it roughly right, writing that essay that makes sense is great. You can't say that essay is precisely the right essay. It's just, it's an essay that makes sense. And I think that's it's a distinction between what needs to be precise and really built up many, many steps, and what needs to happen sort of roughly right.
The ML is stochastic. So while 2 + 2 is always 4, in the LLM world, it might be, whatever, 5, 4, 6, 3. But there seems to be, and you've worked with cellular automata, which I find fascinating. And I think for a long time, the thought about, like Conway's Game of Life, the thought about these was there would be emergent properties that would come out of this. That seems to be what's happening with LLMs as right now, or no?
Somewhat, yes. I mean, so just to explain that thought, I mean, the big thing that was, to me, a huge surprise from the early 1980s is even if you have a really simple program, like something that's just sort of one line of code, that you can specify it by some very simple rules about, black and white squares or something like that. Even if the setup, the rules are really simple, the behavior that can emerge can be really complicated. That's something that's very surprising to us because we're used to, we're doing engineering. We want to make something complicated. We have to go to lots of effort to make it complicated. What we discover is in the computational universe of possible programs, even a very simple program can do very complicated things. And that's a big deal for one's intuition about how nature works and lots of other kinds of things. It's also a part of the core of what happens in machine learning, but I think the path is not quite so direct. I mean, this question of when you say it's sort of an emergent thing, I think that's true, but it works in a slightly different way. So, I mean, the thing that is surprising about machine learning is that the kinds of decisions that it makes seem to more or less agree with the decisions that we humans make, like the is it a cat or a dog type thing. It seems to, surprisingly, more or less agree with the way we make those distinctions. And I think there's sort of a question of why that happens. And I think the probable answer is because its architecture is fairly similar to the architecture of our brains. And so it's making those distinctions in the same kind of way we make those distinctions. Now, it turns out that to get to the point of being able to train the thing from examples, you do need a bunch of this same kind of emergent behavior that you see in things like cellular automata. But that's a more sophisticated part of the story. I mean, I think the most significant, the sort of zeroth order effect is that what the neural nets do seems to sort of align with what we would typically do in similar circumstances.
And yet, the thing or the goal, it seems to me, for these would be for them to do something more than a human could do.
Well, I mean, there's a matter of scale, right? Like I'm, right now, I'm trying to use LLMs as a tool to study something that basically needs me to read, 500,000 papers.
Right.
I'm not going to read 500,000 papers, but can I extract the essence of those things and, in a human-like way, as if I was reading those papers? And the answer is probably yes. And so that's an example. Now, there will be things that I can, there's a lot of leverage I can get from being able to do that. Is it something qualitatively different from what I could do? No, not really. It's just a matter of scale.
So the thought that maybe an AI could come up with a way to do nuclear fusion that we haven't thought of, or fold a protein in a way that we haven't thought of before, or create a new material, is that out of the question?
Well, the thing to understand is doing original things is easy. If you have a sequence of random numbers, that sequence of random numbers will be original at all stages.
Yeah. The
question is, does it align with anything you care about?
Valuable versus original. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, so now the question is, could you come up with something that's really good by, for example, noticing that, across, the 100,000 papers that relate to different approaches to nuclear fusion, there is this theme that you can extract that lets you see what to do. Yes, that's perfectly possible.
A human could theoretically do it, but maybe an AI is more likely to do it, given that there's a million papers.
Yeah, and I think that the human plus AI is the best alternative. And I think the thing to realize is what ends up happening is, AI is an automation mechanism, as far as I'm concerned. And the way that tends to work is somebody has to say, what do you want to do? And then the automation mechanism can go try and do it. But if you don't know what you're trying to do, there's no place to start. And I think, the AI that's just incredibly, it's learned a lot of stuff, but it's just sitting as a box on your desk. It's like, well, what is it going to do? There has to be some, well, I want this to happen. And, we humans have lots of things where we say, I want this to happen. Now, you could ask the question, if you just got a lot of AIs hanging around, won't they kind of spontaneously say, I want to have this kind of thing, this thing happen? And at some level, that is, you could look at what's happening in the AIs that already exist in the world, and you could kind of probe that, and you could say, it looks like this AI wants this or that thing to happen. And there's this whole sort of civilization of AIs that's already starting to exist, that's sort of separate from human civilization. And at the beginning, it seems like that's a really weird thing, and it's a really scary thing that these AIs could be off having their own, their own civilization independent of us. But the thing to realize is there's a really good model for that we are very familiar with, which is the natural world. The natural world is off doing all kinds of complicated things. It just does them. It's, we live around it, but it's not, it's not something where we're all freaked out because the natural world is doing things that we don't know about, we don't to understand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's kind of the picture of where I see things going with the kind of the civilization of the AIs versus the civilization of us humans.
I love that. And I know what you want to ask, Paris, and I know what Jeff wants to ask, but I'll let you go ahead. I won't take your question, but I know where we're going here.
How do you define AGI?
I knew it. I knew you'd say that.
The minute you said that, I knew. I was like, God,
One of us was going to ask it.
And specifically, there's two questions. One, how do you personally define AGI? And two, do you think that there's this common definition or like a shorthand of AGI that goes around of, superhuman intelligent AI that could replace humans and outpace us at tasks? Do you think that that's feasible?
Well, okay, I think AGI is a really mushy concept, and I think it is the emergent concept from AI, which was always a mushy concept. So it's this thing about, can you make something which does everything a human does? You'll always be able to find things that that the thing doesn't do. Like it's not mortal, or it doesn't get flu or something. The only thing that does exactly what a human does is a human. Yeah. And, you'll always be able to find some place where you can kind of find the magic thing that is the unique thing left over for humans. My first comment. My second comment is that I think that, in the end, the AIs can get very powerful. They can do all sorts of elaborate computational things. Lots of, I've spent a large part of my life studying what sort of simple programs in the wild can do. And they can do amazingly sophisticated things that are probably just as sophisticated as things happening in our brains. The issue is that there's the question of, do those things align with anything we care about? I mean, there's plenty of things that happen in the natural world that are, in some sense, computationally more sophisticated probably than what's happening in our brains. But it's a question of, are those things where we say, oh, that's human-like intelligence-like stuff? And the answer is not usually. I mean, we sometimes say, the weather has a mind of its own, but that mind is fairly different from a human mind. It's unpredictable, it's complicated, but it isn't sort of human aligned. So I tend to think that the story ends up being that there is this kind of computational resource that is the civilization of the AIs, and there's how we interact with that, which tends to be things where we say we want to have this happen, and then we get AIs to do that. And sometimes things will just happen because that's what the sort of the natural course of AIs leads to have happen. So I think it's sort of the idea that something happens that is superhuman. We have superhuman things happening all the time, either in nature or in our computers. And a lot of things I've studied in my efforts in science have to do with even very tiny programs that in a sense do superhuman computations. But we look at them and we say, that's interesting. Sometimes we say, I see the significance of that and it's really cool. And sometimes we just kind of shrug and say, well, that's computationally sophisticated, but it's not something I care about.
You, of course, have written a lot about the computational paradigm. I'm wondering if there's any intersection between that and what we're calling machine learning or AI today, or are they separate domains?
No, I think that the way I see a lot of what's happening with AI and machine learning right now is providing outstanding kind of linguistic interfaces to things, sort of humanizing the way that one can interact with things. The question is, what's behind that? And, the thing that we have been able to do with computation is build these kind of tall stacks of capability. And that's something that, if you went back 300 years or so, people were still talking about natural philosophy. The idea of kind of mathematical science hadn't really started off. And, if we'd gone straight from natural philosophy to today, there wouldn't really be a back end that we could talk about. It really would be, it's just this human-like thinking, this kind of linguistic interface and so on. But right now, we can actually compute things. We can build these kind of tall towers of computation. We can work out things that involve, millions of steps, where each step has to be precise and so on. And I think that's what I've spent a large part of my life building the tools to make that possible. And I think the thing that's really kind of interesting right now is, we built that for human users. Now we also have lots of AI users. Turns out that because the AIs are using this kind of linguistic interface that matches humans, that the things we did to make what we built suitable for human users are the exact right things to have done to make it suitable for our current AI users, so to speak. But
that's so exciting. That's amazing.
Right, the emerging thing is you talk to the AI, but the back end is a computational kind of thing. And, we built Wolfram language to kind of have this sort of computational representation of the world where you can do precise computations, where you can have precise knowledge, you can build things up and so on. And I think, my vision of the future is that there is this layer of kind of linguistic interface, and then there is this kind of computational bedrock, this kind of computational knowledge bedrock. And that the thing that we don't yet know really that well is we only have sort of the coarsest ways to interface between that sort of linguistic layer and the kind of computational bedrock. But I think, for example, the idea that, we're going to train the LLM to learn, what the millionth digit of pi is or something. This is not a particularly good idea.
Yeah.
It's in an LLM, you're taking knowledge, grinding it up in some way that we don't understand very well, and where is that million digits of pi? Is it in the collective, features of 1,000 weights spread across the neural net? It's a mess, and it's not kind of the right way to implement things. Just as if we were, if we had all of our computer infrastructure, but there were no actual computers. The computers were, as they used to be, humans. And we said, okay, we want to run a program. Let's get a human to run the program. Turns out humans aren't very good at running programs in their minds. And, that wouldn't work very well. So we have these, we have machines to run the programs. And that's something where the humans define what the programs should do, and then the machines run the programs. And I think that's the same sort of direction that we see, happening in what's happening with kind of the current version of AI.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to get an AI to do mathematics, you say use code, and then it can do it. That's the interface to a computational system.
Yes.
Then it can do it, and it does it quite well.
Hopefully using our tech. It works well using our tech.
Yes. So, and of course, that's one of the things people are talking about a lot these days is replacing human coders with AI.
Well, you have to understand what's really going on there. I've spent a large part of my life as a language designer. Yeah. What does a language designer do? Well, a language designer is trying to take sort of the things that humans want to do and define primitives in a computer language that let the human do what they want, specify what they want in as good a way as possible. The approach most people who've designed languages have taken is, I'm just going to have this very small language, then I'm going to rely on people to build up libraries that do specific kinds of things. I've done the crazy thing in my life of trying to build sort of an integrated language that does everything, that sort of coherently defines sort of everything in a computational way. And for me, the main thing we're seeing is people, what in our language would be, a line or two of code, because we've defined all those operations integrated into the language, people have been used to using, in many cases, sort of low-level languages where it takes a giant blob of code to do this thing. And so then they see that, yes, the AI can write that giant blob of code. For me as a language designer, it's like that giant blob of code just shouldn't exist.
It shouldn't exist at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it should have already been defined, because that's a blob of code you repeatedly want to do. That should have been defined as a primitive thing in the language you're using. So, I think now, having said that, the idea that you can go from sort of a thing that you just talk about linguistically to something in code that actually works particularly well with our computational language, because it's sort of the closest to being able to deal with things that you just talk about, like cities or videos or whatever else. And so what, we released a product recently that's our notebook assistant, where it's kind of remarkable the extent to which you can just be blabbing along and saying something kind of vague, and it will try to get sort of to code that is the closest code it can find to what you thought you were talking about. And it's quite interesting because it kind of crispens up your idea. You're kind of saying something vague. It says, well, let me respond with this precise piece of code. And sort of the whole idea of our computational language is it's a language that can not only be written by humans, but can also be read by humans. So in a sense, what's happening is the AI is responding and saying, well, the thing I think of that I'm reminded of by what you're saying is this precise computational thing that you can then respond to, and so on. And that seems to be a very powerful way to do things.
Are you using your own models for that, your own LLMs, or?
We're using mostly other people's LLMs, but there's a big sort of layer of other technology around that is essentially doing things like dynamically prompting the LLM with using computation, using RAGs and things like that to be able to say, given that that's what the humans said they wanted to do, hey, LLM, you should know exactly this and this and this. And then the LLM can kind of fill in the details. And then on the back end, we're also kind of cleaning up what the LLM did to provide sort of the best possible code. And that it works well. But it's worth realizing, and I think this is a general feature of a lot of what's going on with LLMs today, that the harness is pretty important. I mean, we had built an early version of this 18 months ago. It didn't work that well. As we tightened up the harness, so to speak, it started being really useful. And the LLM is an important component, but the harness is also important.
What do you wish for next? I'm gratified to hear you say, to kind of reject the hubris of the human, thinking that the goal is to replicate and beat us. It's to do these amazing things that it can do. Jan LeCun said in The Guardian, I think 2 weeks ago, that teaching it reality, that when the ball falls off the table, it doesn't go away. Jensen Huang talked about training the digital twins so that it knew how to deal with that reality. That's one view. What do you wish for in next developments? Because every AI company now is coming out with this next version that's just that much better, that much faster. Where's the leap that you wish for?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the history of AI, machine learning, and so on. There have been a series of kind of jumps. For a long time, neural nets didn't do anything terribly interesting. 2011, they started doing image recognition, then, speech to text and so on, then language generation. And actually, image generation came a little bit before language generation. And there are these kind of thresholds. And my suspicion is that, if you look at, for example, image recognition, things haven't got that much better in the last 15 years. It's incremental improvement. There is this moment where you kind of get over the threshold. It's kind of like, I think for language models, it's a little bit like what I think kind of happened with the telephone. People knew that in principle you could transmit speech over copper wires or whatever, but nobody could understand what was being said at the other end of the phone, so to speak, until Alexander Graham Bell sort of found some hacks that made that work. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that sounds like speech. And I think that's sort of what happened in the large language models. It got to a point where it reached a threshold where it's like, yeah, this is basically working. And I think we'll see that in a bunch of other areas. I mean, the area that's sort of an obvious one is the kind of, as you were alluding to, the sort of the real world robotics, common sense kind of, I drop this, it falls, that kind of thing. And I don't see any reason that won't happen even fairly soon. Will that be significant in the world? Absolutely, that will be significant in the world. There are all kinds of things that have been, a human has to do that involve sort of manual dexterity and things like this, where it will suddenly be the case that yes, we can use AI to do that. In terms of, on the intellectual side, I would say that the thing I guess, one thing is the on-ramp to computation for people. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can kind of, for every field X, there's sort of a computational X version of that field, but can people get there? Can, the archaeologist be doing computational archaeology? Well, they say, but I can't program. Well, that's not necessary anymore. You can use the LLM to get to computational language. You can read the computational language. You can be off doing your computational archaeology. So I think one of the big sort of trends will be towards sort of computational X for all X, so to speak, and people really being able to get there. And you don't have to go to the druidic specialized programmers to get the code written to be able to do your computational X. I think that's another piece.
For anybody who's ever used Wolfram Alpha, that is the amazing moment when you type in natural language and get such amazing results. Is the Notebook Assistant kind of the next generation of Wolfram Alpha?
In a way, it's a little bit of a different thing. I mean, Wolfram Alpha I view as being sort of the drive-by answer your question type system.
Right.
You type in a simple question, you get a computed answer. What the Notebook Assistant is trying to do is to set up the sort of the bricks of computation that you need to build up whatever you're trying to do. So it's not just trying to say, here's the answer, you're done. It's trying to say, here's this thing that is a brick, a tool that you can then build on and continue building up. So I think the way I see sort of the future of things like software development is the first thing you have to do is to imagine what you're trying to do computationally. And that's the thing, they don't teach that in computer science school, how to sort of think about everything computationally. But I think that's a super important skill, is like, how do you conceptualize what you want to talk about in a computational way? Once you've gotten some distance towards that, then you can ask our Notebook Assistant, it'll write a piece of computational language code, that'll do a piece of what you want. You take that piece of computational language code, that becomes a component that you can then start building up from to make the larger thing that you want to build. I think that's sorry. See, that's a human feature, not yet emulated by AI. Although I'm sure they could learn from.
Actually, it's interesting because more and more people are finding that LLMs, if you push them long enough, they start to kind of decline, almost physically decline.
Yes,
in their ability, which I find fascinating. This must be for you a vindication of the computational paradigm in some ways.
Some ways. I mean, I think that this ability to let more people into the computational paradigm, that's a very important thing. Yeah. That has not yet played itself out. That will play itself out over maybe the next decade or so. And I think people haven't, that's still an emerging realization, so to speak.
More to that. I'm curious, since you've lived in this world and developed this world for a long time, suddenly when LLMs arrive, everybody says, oh, hell, this is AI, as if that has arrived fresh. What's your reaction to society's reaction to since ChatGPT's release? How have you seen in just people talking in media, in companies? How do you sense that? Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting that this was a moment of consumerization. I mean, it's just like with computers in general. I mean, people, I started using computers when I was a kid in the 1970s, and most people were like, computers, who cares? Maybe they're in the back end of something, doing some, bank processing thing or whatever, or figuring out how to launch rockets, but I don't care about that. And then, the personal computer comes out and people discover things like word processing and games and so on. And suddenly it's like, oh, we really care about computers. I think that was sort of the ChatGPT moment, was the one where people could see that there was this. I mean, by the way, nobody knew ChatGPT was going to work, including the people who built it. I mean, it was really, it's like, at what point? I mean, I'd been playing with language models and sequence prediction and so on. None of that stuff had been terribly interesting. It was a thing where, for whatever reason, and we don't understand why yet, maybe we one day will, suddenly we got over a threshold, some number of billions of parameters. It's like that was enough. That was human-like enough, so to speak. Now, that scale is probably determined by something to do with us. Like we humans have about 50,000 words in our typical languages. And we have 100 billion neurons in our brains. That provides a definite scale. If you wanted an AI that would be like a dog, for example, in its linguistic capabilities, let's say, you probably need a much smaller LLM, but we wouldn't be as impressed by it. So somehow the size of the LLM, the size of the system was such that it was sort of matched enough of what we need to be impressed by that that we got to that point. By the way, one thing to just say is sort of a side comment. One thing I've been curious about is, let's say we had 1,000 times as many neurons in our brains. What might we be able to do? What's kind of the next level of sort of intellectual capability? It's just like, cats and dogs, well, dogs at least, a few individual words, fetch, sit, whatever else. They deal with that. We humans, the big invention of our species, I suppose, was human language and this idea that you can put together an infinite collection of sentences by using all these different words. So a big question is, what happens next? If we could go beyond that, what's the next level of sort of abstraction and sophistication? That's an interesting thing to think about, but you also are stuck kind of thinking, well, if I was the dog, could I really understand human compositional language? And is it the case that there's something bigger? There undoubtedly is, but maybe it's something that just isn't a fit for us. Just like the natural world has lots of things going on that we don't understand except through this sort of bridge of natural science. But I think, in terms of people's reaction to ChatGPT, I think the thing that, a lot of people were like, it's magic, this magic has happened, there's going to be more magic. This was such a surprise. Necessarily, there will be many more surprises. I don't think that's, people always think that when there's a technological surprise, they always think it's not going to stop here, it's going to keep going. But it doesn't always keep going. In fact, it usually doesn't keep going. It usually is, that was the surprise. One got to that sort of threshold level, and then the question was, well, okay, sort of, I was a little bit surprised by this, people saying it's magic, and then it's like, well, how does it work? Oh, it's this AI thing, it's this neural net. And I started thinking, well, can I actually figure out some idea of why does this work? And what I realized is, there's at least a picture of why it works. And it's this, and it's something that in a sense was a feature about human language and human understanding that maybe we should have understood thousands of years ago, which is, people have known about grammar of language, that, you form sentences in English having, noun, verb, noun, and so on. But the kind of, that structure of grammar doesn't tell you whether the sentence is going to be meaningful. There are lots of sentences that go noun, verb, noun, and they're completely meaningless. What I sort of realized is that when the LLM is kind of looking at, hundreds of billions of sentences, it's seeing sort of patterns, not only of the noun, verb, noun type, but of this is a pattern of words that makes sense. And that's sort of the big thing that it sort of statistically learns. People were very surprised at the beginning, for example, that LLMs could do logic, that they could kind of make logical conclusions. And you realize, well, how was logic discovered in the first place? Well, presumably Aristotle went through and just heard lots of people giving speeches and sort of identified these are the patterns of speeches that make sense. And then those became syllogisms, and they became what we now think of as logic. And I think the LLMs kind of learnt it the same way. And so, in a sense, one of the things that was sort of interesting to me was people sort of think it's magic, and you realize, well, actually, it's not such magic. There's probably a thing that actually is telling us an interesting piece of science that maybe we should have learned a long time ago. That's sort of at the core of why this can possibly work.
That is also a big part of your book. What is ChatGPT doing, and why does it work? Very provocative. Every time I talk to you, Stephen, I feel guilty that we are using brain cycles that you could be using much more advantageously. I want to thank you for spending time with us and encourage everyone to go to wolframs.com, Stephen's site. It's a great entry point. There are books there. There's links to the new Wolfram Alpha notebook, which I think is fascinating. I'm going to sign up immediately. And I really appreciate the time. You've given us so much to think about. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen.
Lots of cool questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll put this out later in the day. It will go up immediately. We'll send you, if you like, we'll send you some clips if you want to give them to your social people and so forth. You can pass them along.
No, this was
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure
I'm a bit
to talk
long
to you.
form. I'm so used to just yakking on.
That's what podcasts
Stephen,
are
I
made
would talk to you for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I just, again, I'm sincere saying I feel guilty taking any of your brain cycles.
It's you're very welcome to them. Anyway,
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
You know, we'll have you back in a few months, and we can talk more about this because you've immediately brought up all of this stuff I want to think about. So it's great. Thank
Cool
you.
stuff.
Really appreciate it.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
Stephen.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet
Take
you.
care. Yeah. Wow. Isn't that that last thought? Wow. Just amazing. Wolfram.com. Go there. There's so much there. I am going to sign up for that notebook because it's basically the idea is a English language interface to the computational paradigm. So you talk, it computes. To me, that was what Wolfram Alpha was originally. But now it is, it's even more powerful. It's just
I felt I wasn't smart enough for Wolfram Alpha. This might be a
yeah. Well, it's for
different
people
path.
like you who aren't smart enough for Wolfram Alpha. That's all right. We're going to take a break, and we will come back. We have AI news, and I think what we're going to do from now on with the show is we'll do an interview. We have some great interviews coming up, including next week. It's Gary Marcus, which is going to be great. I think you know him well. Thank you, Jeff, for helping us arrange that. The following week, it's the man who coined the term intelligent machines. Ray Kurzweil will join us. I've also talked to a bunch of other people. We've actually booked it well in advance. One of them, my friend Harper Reed, has written an interesting article about exactly what Stephen was talking about. As a coder, the interface to an LLM to do the coding, and he has some very interesting thoughts about that. And it really is he says, and I agree, it's pair programming, but using an LLM. So lots more coming up on the show.
When
but
are
as
we
I
getting the sand guy on the show?
maybe not. You know, we have so many, we're filled up
promised.
almost.
no.
Okay,
No.
just wanna-
It's-
I'll get him on. I'll
He
get him on.
teased. He teased 1 week that the sand guy was going to be
I'll
on.
get the
so-
sand guy on. We will get the sand guy. But from now on, what we're going to do is start with a half-hour interview with somebody who's really doing some interesting things or provocative. Then we'll do the AI news, and we'll follow that with another news because I want you guys to be able to, talk about all the other things you're interested in. And then we'll follow up with the picks of the week. And if we can, we're going to try to keep this show under 5 hours. How's that sound? Okay? All right.
Sounds good.
Paris Martineau, Jeff Jarvis. We will continue with intelligent machines in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor. Delete Me. Delete Me saved our company. Well, maybe that's an overstatement. But honestly, we were freaked out because we were getting spear phishing attacks using our CEO's name, phone number. The bad guys knew her direct reports, their names, their phone numbers, and we were scratching our head. And we said, do we have a mole inside? Then we realized it's data brokers. Everything there is to know about you, your family, your company is online somewhere, legally sold by a data broker. If you've ever searched for your name online, don't. First of all, don't. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. So much personal information is available, and there's always that little link that says, and now for $1.50 more, I'll tell you about their prison record and things like that. This is a nightmare situation. We learned with the National Public Data Breach that it's legal for a data broker to sell your social security number to anybody with $1.50. Actually, maintaining privacy is not just for your personal issues or your company's concerns. It's a family affair too. That's why Delete Me has plans for everybody. businesses, individuals, even families. With the family plan, you can ensure everyone in your family feels safe online. They help reduce risk from identity theft, cybersecurity threats, harassment, and more. It made a big difference for us when Steve Gibson and I went into the National Public Database to see if our social security numbers were in there. They were, but guess who wasn't? Our CEOs. We looked for Lisa's. No information at all because we've been using Delete Me. When you sign up for Delete Me, their experts will find and remove your information from hundreds of data brokers. If you're doing it for a family, you're going to sign in a unique data sheet to each member, tailored to them, easy to use controls. Account owners can manage the privacy settings for the whole company or the whole family. Delete Me then, now this is really important, won't just stop there. They will continue to scan and remove your information regularly. And that's for two reasons. One, because data brokers, being data brokers, are going to start repopulating that information. But the other is there's always new data brokers. In fact, this is really skeevy. Sometimes those data brokers go belly up and then start a new company under a new name so they can start collecting all your information again. I'm talking everything: addresses, photos, emails, relatives, phone numbers, social media, property value, social security numbers. Protect yourself. Reclaim your privacy. Visit joindeleteme.com/twit. When you use the offer code TWIT, you'll get 20% off. Joindeleteme.com/twit. We thank them for their support, and we encourage you to use that special address in the offer code so they know you saw it here. Joindeleteme.com/twit. Offer code TWIT. Okay. In AI news, OpenAI says they have 4 million weekly active, 400, sorry. That seems like an unbelievable number. 400 million active users every week.
I don't believe it. I don't hear people in the street saying, I was using ChatGPT today.
But you do hear, surprisingly, don't you hear people say, oh yeah, I think a lot of people are using AI now.
I wonder if you said weekly active users.
That's what OpenAI, they told CNBC that. And now I think
the last part is weekly active. I always pay attention whenever I hear big user number names with anybody in tech, whether it's Meta or OpenAI, pay attention to the specific words they're using to define it in the time period. In this, it's weekly and active users. What in this case is considered an active user would be my question.
Well, touch it once and you're an active user.
But
those numbers generally mean
in what way? Is it
in
like
that time period somebody used it? That's all.
Are they saying that someone who uses a pop-up customer chat feature that is powered by OpenAI is technically an OpenAI user?
I think you're right.
Or what about whenever you go on any of these websites now and I get one of those chat pop-ups and it starts typing to me even though I haven't said anything? Am I an active user even though I didn't type back?
Or you use Bing in any way?
Well,
remember that Microsoft has a billion and a half users. Probably more than half of them have Copilot on their system. So they have OpenAI's ChatGPT on their system.
So as a brand, as a brand and a future for the company?
Yeah, they didn't say how many are paying. They do say they have 2 million paying enterprise users, and that figure's doubled since September. Are they publicly held? They're not, but I think they still aren't going to go on CNBC and lie.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing is these figures,
it's just you could
when
fudge
people say them, they're not, I'm not saying they're outright lies.
Right.
It's just they are perhaps a bit misleading when you think about what you'd first imagine from someone saying, I have 400 million weekly active users. This is something me and my colleagues have thought about a lot with regards to Meta saying
Facebook's
they have
notorious.
I'm forgetting what the figure is, but they said they had some sky-high figure for Threads active users, and I'm forgetting whether it was monthly or weekly. We did a similar sort of look to be like, it seems like these numbers are maybe being juiced by people who interact with the Threads carousel on Instagram or things like that. So I think it's always worth putting a little asterisk next to some of these numbers when they're privately.
Especially when the number is 400 million. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Well,
nevertheless,
and this all fits into them trying to value things as they shift over to whatever the heck the for-profit structure is going to be.
Yeah,
it's a dance.
We abandoned the Google changelog because Leo hated it, but we probably should do a little thing every week. New models this week, because it feels like everybody shipped a new model this week.
But I had that conversation with Jason today. Nothing bores me more
But why
than
do we
a
care
new
about
model.
that?
Yeah. It's like, it reminded me of the old days of Twitlio, where it was very hardware and, there's a new screen and it's got 18 nits instead of 18
There's a
nits.
new operating system.
Yeah.
This one's
no,
14.1. Whoa.
I have to say, though, the new Claude, I don't know what version is, 3.5, is better at coding. They have a coding version, and I did test it, and I was very impressed with its ability to write code. I liked what Mr. Wolfram said, however.
Dr. Wolfram to you.
Dr. Wolfram, Mr. Dr. Reverend Wolfram said, because I worship him.
He's got a PhD at like 6.
20.
So he's Dr. Wolfram.
Yeah, he is a doctor. You're right. I notice he doesn't use that honorific, so I don't know what to call him. He's very impressive. Anyway, one of the things he said was, and I think he was right, that the LLMs are a natural interface, human to machine interface for coding. I think that is a good way to put it.
His perspective, because that's what he has been trying to do for years, and I think that's really interesting to see that perspective on it.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Amazon had its event.
Nvidia just released its results.
And yes,
breaking?
Are they making money?
80% boom in profit. Beat the guesses.
The stock, of course, has been going down all day in preparation for these numbers. But I wouldn't be surprised if the stock,
after hours, I looked at after hours, it was up 6%.
Yeah, not a surprise.
So
NVIDIA, this is from my colleague Anissa Gardizzi. She said NVIDIA said revenue rose 78% year over year to nearly $40 billion, continuing a streak of more than 2 years of beating its own revenue growth projections. It had projected 70% growth for the quarter 3 months ago, and on Wednesday forecast 65% revenue growth in the current fiscal quarter. Despite the shaky results, shares were flat in after-hours trading, though.
Well, I just looked, and it was up.
Right now, it's up 3.67%, 4.65% today.
30 minutes ago, she published this.
Yeah.
This is the original dip was partially, I assume, because they also said its gross profit margin in the January quarter decreased by 1.6 percentage points to 73% gross profits.
Well, also, you what is it? You buy on the rumor, you sell on the news, or is it the other way around? I can never remember. The stock market is a bad indicator.
Leap forward, fall back.
I don't know. Spring, and I don't know. Anyway, good news for NVIDIA, I think, and really very good news for NVIDIA investors who have kind of, in many cases, thrown all of their weight behind NVIDIA's success. I don't think NVIDIA will have a monopoly eventually, but right now they pretty much
No, but they're
do.
doing so much more than just the chips. That's why I'm such a fan of Jensen Huang's keynotes, because it just shows how much they're in a full stack. Yeah.
Although, one of the moats that NVIDIA has right now is CUDA, which is the language interface to NVIDIA's GPUs. And it's one of the reasons, honestly, Apple with its chips and its integrated RAM often has more memory available to the AI. The problem is many of these AIs want CUDA. At some point, somebody's going to write an Apple equivalent of CUDA, just as, by the way, Deepseek did in order to keep using those, H20s or whatever they're using instead of the H100s. And I think that moat is not going to last forever.
Is CUDA open source or is CUDA?
No.
See, that's where I'm just reading right now the story of Adobe.
Oh, that's a wonderful book. I have that book. It really is.
Yeah. Inside the Publishing Revolution, the Adobe story by, I can read it myself, Pamela Fiffner.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that moment came when they were frightened to death of making the standards behind Type 1's fonts open, but they had to.
Right.
And it led to the growth. And I wonder if that's somewhat similar with NVIDIA. They have a lot of moats in a sense, and the chips and so on, and they want to be the standard, don't they?
Yeah, but what's right now locking people into NVIDIA GPUs is CUDA. They're a proprietary language you can't use on other systems.
But if you could use it on other systems, they become the wellspring? It's a classic problem with Adobe. It's Acrobat.
Yeah, I think that you're not going to see an open source CUDA. I think what is more likely is that somebody's going to come along and write something that will either translate CUDA into something that Apple's chips will understand. I really think that mode is not going to last forever. I'm not an expert on this, so I defer to anybody who has more to say about it. Apple has its own, standards, but the world has moved to CUDA because of NVIDIA's dominance. However, I've heard people say, and I think it's true, that the Apple Silicon plus the integrated memory offered by Apple Silicon could actually make these Apple systems AI powerhouses.
Hi, this is Benito.
Hi, Benito. What's your opinion?
I think we talked about this on Twit this weekend, right? Like someone likened it to gaming. Like how Apple never really tried.
Right.
Right.
Microsoft dominated DirectX. Apple has Metal, but game developers never really embraced the Macintosh. Of course, it's a fraction of the size of the market for gaming that Microsoft's Windows is. On the other hand, Linux gaming has started to take off. That's because of the Steam Deck.
Yeah, that's because Steam runs on Linux. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a complicated.
Wow. I've been using Linux this whole time.
You just didn't know.
Aren't you cool, geeky?
You just didn't
I'm
know.
really cool. I'm going to put this on my resume.
Nvidia saved the markets today.
LinkedIn
Nvidia's growth
skills.
did help the stock market, which has been suffering a little bit this week. So,
Or stocks.
did you watch or study or in any way? I didn't get to watch it. Amazon's AI announcements this morning.
No.
So this is Panos Panay, who was in charge of hardware at Microsoft, left kind of, I think, in a huff to go to Amazon to be in charge of their hardware. And they are today officially launching their long-awaited generative AI version of, I'm going to say Echo instead of the A word, so I don't trigger anything. They call it A word plus. That really is. All right. ALEXA, you know what I'm talking about there? Interestingly, it isn't out today. It won't be out for a month or two. We had heard, I think from the information and others, that Amazon was struggling with this AI. It wasn't very good or it was hallucinating a lot. But they hope, they say, by the end of March to be able to ship it. And interestingly, it will be free for Prime members. $20 a month on its own or free for Amazon Prime members.
Does anything separate that out from everybody else's new releases every week?
Well, the interesting thing is Prime's only $15 a month. So I don't really understand why anybody would pay $20 a month for just that one
that may
feature.
just be the point. Prime is prime to their business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably to boost Prime subscribers.
So Panos showed a lot of, as usual with these AI demos. If you do it just right, you can get great results. There is agentic AI in it. You can have it write emails. You can have it call Ubers. You can even, according to Panos, although Nilay Patel said that's not how Uber works at JFK, have an email sent to somebody who's getting off the airplane telling them that their Uber will pick them up here. Apparently that isn't something real, but Panos was able to do it. Actually, Amazon's director of A-Word, Mara Siegel, demonstrated how to share documents like handwritten notes, recipes, emails, instruction manuals, and pictures. I'm getting all this from The Verge. Jennifer Toohey, who was on Twitter on Sunday, and the Verge team were live blogging while the demos were going on. Alexa Plus, I said it, can take action when prompted. So you could say, what's my kid's soccer schedule? Add that to my calendar. Give me a reminder. All in what The Verge calls fairly casual, natural language in an ongoing conversation.
I'll believe it when I see it. I've been burned by she who must not be named too many times.
Yeah. When you speak with the new AAP, could you call it AP for Alexa Plus? When you speak on devices with a display, you'll see a fluctuating blue bar at the bottom of the interface. Panay said, this is Alexa. And the little animations and icons it displays are called stand back Alexicons.
I like that you've just given up. The whispering definitely still would have triggered it. Then saying it out.
Turn down your radios. The company, let's see, had showed how it will tell you stories, tell your kids stories. Did you? I played with my bee on Twit, and I had it tell me a sexy story, and it was very romantic. It was wonderful.
Did you ask for sexy?
Speaking about sexy stories, we can get there in a second.
Oh boy!
I didn't mean it like that. I just
that's a tease of teases. How can you not?
I meant we're talking
have
about
you heard?
Grok. Okay.
Yes.
Grok 3.0 has a sexy time mode, and it's disturbingly explicit.
There's lots to say about
is what you
about Grok.
That is sexy.
Yeah. Let's see. Tell stories. You can generate AI art if you've got a screen, and then send it off to somebody using email. It uses two models: the Amazon Novo model, as well as Anthropic's Claude. They didn't mention any other companies, although they say we'll be model agnostic, so maybe they haven't made a deal with anybody else yet. They also, Jeff, get news from the Associated Press, Politico, the Washington Post, and Reuters.
Because I think they do license those at Amazon.
Oh, yes. They're partners, right? Yes. Oh, yeah. They're not just scraping it and telling you.
Well,
well, since Bezos owns the Washington Post, I think they probably have it.
That's a whole other story.
I know. There's a later. We'll have more of that. Yeah. The company demonstrated that having Madam A answer questions about the Boston Red Sox, then this was a good one, and I would do this. Say, are there tickets available? And she says they're $200, and say, well, set a reminder or set an alert for me when they're less, when they cost less.
I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it.
I know. I'm just telling you the demo, right? LLM experts on the A word can also do things for services from firms like Uber Eats, Sonos, Wise, Zoom, Xbox, Plex, Dyson. Oh, it'd be great. A word, vacuum the kitchen. Bose, Grubhub. I don't know who Lavoie is. Lavoie and Ticketmaster. Oh, great. Ticketmaster. That's how you get those $200 tickets, by the way.
We're going to charge you a special AI fee.
Half of that is service fees. Some of the features will be available through the web on the A-Word website. They're also partnering with my favorite song generator, Suno, so that you can ask for, and the example they gave was Bodega Cat Love.
What?
I think you'd enjoy that. Bodega Cat Love.
An AI-made country song about a bodega cat. I would enjoy that, actually.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bodega cat, and it's in the way. It'd be fun. I have a number of Suno country songs. Okay, by the way, I got to tell you this. I don't know if what's going to happen, but I got an email from the PR flack saying that Gene Simmons of Kiss is coming to our local casino, which just shows you how far he's fallen. Oh, don't take that part out. I immediately emailed her and said, Can Mr. Simmons come on our show, Intelligent Machines, and talk about how he feels? Well, here's what I'm going to do about AI ingesting the Kiss discography and then spitting out songs that sound like Kiss. What I'm going to do is ask Suno to make a Kiss song and play it for him and see what he does.
How do you think that's going to go?
Yeah.
Badly, I hope.
Yeah, I think his tongue is going
to
come out.
I hope he yells at me and hangs up.
I think that would be really beautiful.
You know, it's funny. I once interviewed the captain of the group.
Captain and Tennille?
Yeah, you never heard of him, Paris.
My captain?
No, Captain and Tennille, not Walt Whitman. The Captain and Tennille. And I asked him, this was back on Tech TV when Napster was big. I said, does all of the piracy of music, does that bother you? And he said, doesn't bother me. Neil Sedaka owns the rights to all our songs. You should ask Neil. So I'm thinking Gene Simmons may say, oh, screw it. I don't care anymore. I got mine. Anyway,
Gene Simmons notoriously super cares. Gene Simmons super cares. Yeah.
No, I want him to get angry. I want to.
Did he join in the Silent Album?
Oh, tell me about the Silent Album. This is from artists.
There's a whole huge campaign going on in the UK, especially primarily in the UK, where the newspapers have joined in. This goes down to line 85 and following. The Daily Mail, if you go to line 87, you'll see that a huge page, "Don't Steal From Us." Then the next day, all the papers in the next line had their special front pages. And then artists put out, oh, geez, I didn't put the link in. But you can
I got a link right here. Artists released silent album in protest against AI using their work. There's Annie Lennox, Kate Bush, somebody named Damon Albarn.
Wait. Paris, do you know who that is?
Oh, I don't know any musicians' names.
Oh, okay. All right, good. You're like an old...
I mean, I know who Kate Bush is, because I love Kate Bush.
And I know who Annie Lennox is. I don't know who... I'm hoping Damon Albarn is a country artist, because that'd be a great name for a country artist. He's probably better known in the UK. Anyway, they released more than 1,000 musicians, because, you know, the beauty of a silent album is the sky's the limit. You can have 1 million tracks on a silent album.
Does God own the right to silence?
Yeah, maybe. God should sue. More than 1,000 albums released 1,000 musicians released a silent album on Tuesday.
Wow.
The album is titled "This? What is this? What we want?" This is the premise, and I keep hearing this from musicians, that if you let AI absorb our music, you won't get any more music.
BS. And don't they listen to each other? Aren't they inspired by each other?
Well, you know, Benito answered this question for me months ago when he said, the reason we make music is because we love to make music. Are these artists saying, well, the only reason we make music is so you'll buy it?
No, I think what they're saying.
No, I think
they're talking about consumerism of it, like the consumer part of it. Like if we just let AI make all the music, sooner or later, people aren't going to care about music made by people anymore.
Well, people have been saying that for years. When Apple came out with white earbuds.
This is a little different.
Yeah, but this is a much larger attack on musicians having a livelihood than AirPods.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about the livelihood part.
They're like, even thinking about small things like I don't know, I'm watching a lot of reality TV lately.
Oh, Damon Albarn is with the Gorillas. I apologize. I am an ignorant fool. I know who the Gorillas are.
I'm sorry to the Gorillas.
Yeah, I apologize, Gorillas.
So sorry. But there are I've been watching a lot of reality TV lately, and on many of these shows, they end up paying major artists or labels to use a snippet of their song. And I was listening to some podcast, a producer talking and saying, oh, sometimes the rights for someone to use a song on something like RuPaul's Drag Race can start at like $20,000 a pop for just a small snippet of music. And for a large artist, like,
let's fix that. That's terrible.
No, I don't think it is terrible. You don't think that ABC or like a major network can pay money to feature a musician's work for the rest of time?
We don't use any real music on our show. Do you know why?
Well, I'm guessing
because it costs $20,000. That's dumb.
I don't know if you want to call it real music, which would say that what Benito made is not real music. So maybe there's another way to put it.
We already pay Benito $5 an hour, so we own all his work product. No, I don't. You're right. Benito makes good music, and that's the theme for our song.
I mean,
our show.
I just think that it's not super helpful to continue to enable a whole industry that will that devalues the work of artists. I can understand why people are upset about it.
I love these artists. Imogen Heap.
Hey,
Cat Stevens.
Shout out to the Gorillas.
Riz Ahmad, Tori Amos, Hans Zimmer. But you know what? Hans Zimmer gonna get paid. This isn't gonna cost.
But there isn't going to be another Hans Zimmer, though, is what he's saying. There won't be a next Hans Zimmer.
Oh, sure, that's what they said with the internet, and then
sure there will.
There were tons more musicians and tons more genres now than there were before the web.
Yeah, and no musician is making any more money now.
Paul McCartney
a lot of people, as you said, love to do it for making the music.
So this is because the UK wants to change copyright law to say that it is okay, in fact, to train. But it's already okay to train in the US. In fact, I think the First Amendment and the right to read, and courts recently seems to have upheld that, say it is okay.
It's going to be tested a lot more in the courts.
There will be a lot more, but we don't need a law in this country because there is a right to read. And I don't think It's not stealing your music. It's listening, just doing the same thing you did, Hans Zimmer, when you listen to John Williams' music and were inspired by it and made your own. It's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, how would you describe when Spotify uses AI to make a bunch of songs, then replaces real artists and bands in its most popular playlists with those AI created songs so that it doesn't have to pay out royalties to those real artists and instead can just pay it out to the AI creations it made, probably by like feeding in the original artists? Is that not theft?
At some level, if you're going to make, let me just do this, they'll be unfair, but if you're going to make elevator music, do you need to pay the royalties for elevator music when it's just noise in the background, or can you have the AI make it for you?
In fact, there's a long-standing tradition. The musicians who make elevator music don't get paid as well as the original artists who wrote the songs or the performers who made the songs. Actually, that's the real point, because often it is the person who wrote the song who would get the royalties, like Neil Sedaka. Yeah, what Spotify did is reprehensible, but the blame there's enough blame to go around. It's the people who pay Spotify to listen to crap music. Do you think that AI-generated music will ruin our taste for real music, good music?
Yes.
I think it'll muddy the waters. And I think that could have downstream effects of
Benito
messing up
votes yes.
taste.
Yeah, because they're just gonna churn it out, and the labels are just gonna keep churning it out and putting it on the radio and putting it on TV and putting it everywhere. That we're not gonna get away from it. We're not gonna be able to get away from it anymore. And it's just gonna be all AI music.
One of the things that changed in the music industry over the last 10 years is that artists make more money performing than they do selling records or streaming their songs. Most artists perform. In fact, Madonna's last contract with, ironically, Ticketmaster, or a Ticketmaster subsidiary, was paying her to tour. The albums were secondary. The money is in touring. And I'm not going to pay, and I don't think you're going to pay, to sit in an audience and listen to AI-generated sound. Although, I think a DJ probably, there are a lot of people who go to concerts by DJs, right? Those are pretty awful.
There's a lot of space bar concerts where someone just hits the space
So you
bar.
might make the argument DJs started this.
Well, Jack Conte famously put up all the financials for a tour that he did with his wife.
He lost money. Yeah.
And he lost money, and that's
Right.
what led to Patreon. And so nobody's going to, I think, give a Patreon contribution to an AI.
No.
They're going to support a musician because they love the musician or the artist.
Although,
or the journalist.
aren't there synthetic Iduro artists?
Japan is the exception to every possible rule.
Yeah, but those are created by people. Or in the most popular cases, they are.
Yeah. I mean, so will AI music be created by people. I think artists are going to survive this, and I think this is moral panic. Benito, play not that one. This one.
Oh, a new one.
It's new.
Apparently,
I like
Anthony has
Congrats.
paid big bucks for a new AI. Is that Pika doing that? Do we know? He
I don't know.
convinced me
That's,
to buy this, and I'm so regret buying it. It's
Anthony, I'm really excited to see what other stuff is coming down the pipeline as far as special effects.
well, there's more. Play another one. Jeff, say something panicking. We shouldn't spoil them all.
Oh,
How
do
many
it. One
did you
more.
make?
One more.
I mean,
These are
we're
so
gonna burn them really quick if we keep burning them.
All right.
No,
Hey,
because
we
it's
can't- we
AI.
can't.
Anybody,
Wait, no.
it's easy to make. This is. Go ahead.
I was going to say, on the subject of AI and music, I think that the argument of this, like muddying the waters a bit, is very valid. We're starting to see this already, and I think there's something in the rundown to this effect with generated images. I've noticed this, at least. I'm in a lot of subreddits around interior design, home decorating, like various people asking questions about things, and I've started to see a huge influx of. There's always been people who'll post a bunch of photos of stuff they've seen online and be like, what style is this? And now almost all of those photos include like 3 or 4 pictures of AI generated slop, and you zoom in on the details and you're like, none of these homes you think you're trying to covet are real. They're fake and weird mishmashes of other homes, and it's impossible to emulate. And I think there's an article in the rundown about this same thing
Line
happening with
95.
hairstylists.
Line 95. Inspo.
Inspo. What is
Inspo.
Inspo?
Basically,
Inspiration.
hairstylists are complaining that they are having people come in and say, oh, this is the sort of hairstyle I want, and showing them photos that are AI generated and
Ergo impossible to
therefore
do.
Impossible to, yeah.
And
And
driving
I think
them
this
crazy.
is
Well,
the sort
too
of
bad.
downstream effects of AI, is everything just gets
Well,
sloppier.
what? So
and
what?
muddier.
That's just dopey. If people are dopey, they're dopey. People are always going to be dopey. Should we stop creating AI because people are dopey?
I think that we should reflect on the fact that a large percentage of what is produced by AI is dopey stuff, is slop,
Right.
is
So what?
is not at all useful. I think that when we're talking,
As is most of the stuff humans make too, by the way. Have you ever been on X.com?
yeah, but humans have a right to exist, and I'm not sure that AI does.
So
Well, how is it
Bride
different
wanted-
than a human?
It doesn't. It's not a human being that
a
has a
human
right to
wouldn't
exist
think you
like
could
you and
design
I.
this. Yeah. And so a bride can't make her own drawing of a wedding dress, but she presents a photo of a gown with an asymmetrical neckline, no sleeves, and no back. The dress defied the laws of physics.
Well, then the seamstress says, I'm sorry, I can't make that. What else
She
you got?
did that, and she lost a $2,000 sale.
No,
So
she
that's
didn't.
why she's pissed.
She wasn't going to make that sale because the bride wanted a physically impossible dress. That is moral panic in a nutshell. All right, you want to see? I used Pika to make a video. Oh wow, that's creepy.
Oh, I don't like that actually. Why are we exploding?
It's a love bomb.
What are you doing? What's Paris doing with her tongue?
I don't.
This is why I'm
know.
sad I bought this. This is why I'm sad. No,
Oy.
ask me later. I can make some more. Let's see. I could do a proposal. Let's do a proposal of me and you and a dog named Boo. Here, let me go down and I have to find this picture. Oh, maybe I'll just use me and Lisa. Here's a lovely
That's better.
picture. And I'll ask Lisa, even though I already did, to marry me. So I'm generating. So you take a picture. It takes a while, by the way. It's not instantaneous.
How much does this cost you?
Well, it was like, I can't remember. What was it? $20 a month? So I thought, well, I'll just buy a year's worth because it's really cool, Anthony says. He did make those great moral panics. Maybe it's just me.
did.
I don't.
He did.
I'm not good at this or something. Here we go. Let's propose. I'm going to propose to Lisa. Oh, look at that.
Nice ring. there.
Nice ring. Hers is better.
Lisa's going to
Some-
want to
Look at your
there's her
hand
face.
comes
Her
out
face.
of her head.
Her face turns into
Your
your hand.
Her face turns into the ring.
It wasn't just Adam in the rib. It was
creepy as
Lisa in
hell.
the nose.
Yeah.
Haunting.
Here's I have a still image of me that I turned into a moving image. It did a pretty good job of that, right? This was a still.
That's good.
The background's moving and everything. Let me try some more here. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
I would cancel it now if I could. Let's put it that way. But I bought a year of it. I'll give it to you, Anthony.
You'll see the fruits of it here on.
He says it's how you use
Anthony,
it,
I
and you got to
believe in you.
try enough renders to make it really sing.
Fool.
I'm a fool.
You're a
The thing is, I went to the website. See, this is the problem. And I looked at all the cool things they're doing on the website, and I thought, I'd like that. That's cool.
That's Inspo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh. I thought, that's cool. And then I saw these great moral panics, and I thought, well, those are cool. So, Anthony, you have to give us lessons. But anyway, I actually like, I'm an AI accelerationist. I think the UK is on the wrong track, as Europe and the UK often have been.
They're on the right
very
track on this.
anti-technology.
They're opening up. No, in this case, they're opening up.
Oh, that's
to
right. The
learning.
government is opening it up. Yeah.
Yeah, the artists.
And
It's
and it's
those
the artists that
pesky people and artists that
Those
are
pesky artists.
Artists.
You know, the good news is they're all going to be gone soon.
That is great. Soon we'll only have AI.
busking in the tube.
All right.
'Cause there's
I
no
think
other
every
way.
negative story like that, we should have a positive story. Nvidia has launched something called Signs. It's an AI platform for teaching American Sign
This
Language.
is cool.
And I talked to Paul, whose son is deaf, and he asked his son about it. He thought it was great. NVIDIA is working with the American Society for Deaf Children and a creative agency called Hello Monday. It's an interactive web platform to support ASL, American Sign Language Learning, which makes sense because look, it's a great thing to learn. I would love to learn ASL, but there are not enough teachers to go around. There are not enough schools to go around. The data set, NVIDIA says we're going to get to 400,000 video clips representing 1,000 sign words, validated by fluent ASL users and interpreters so that they make sure it's, not hallucinating, it's accurate, and there's no diamond rings coming out of my wife's head. It will result in a high-quality visual dictionary and teaching tool, which I think is a great use of AI. Yeah?
Yeah. Do you think it's possible to kind of do robotic ASL that it could interpret on the fly? No, the problem is if you have 8 fingers, it's going to be very difficult.
If your finger is your wife's face, that might be a problem.
250,000 to 500,000 people in the United States use ASL. But it's often, but a number of people said it's a good language to learn because unlike a spoken language, it uses a different part of your brain, a spatial part of your brain. I've always thought it would be a great language to learn.
Hey, Leo, real quick, you might want to check your email. We heard from Gene Simmons people.
Oh, geez.
Tell them not to watch this show.
Yeah.
Was it positive or negative? Thank you.
You read it.
She says she's going to get it to Gene's rep at CAA immediately. You know what? I want to give Gene Simmons a chance to say what you've all been saying, that artists deserve better treatment. And we shouldn't, let's get an artist on to say it. Who better than the guy who dresses up as a monster and wants to rock and roll all night and party every day?
What does Steve Martin have to say about AI's use in film?
I will ask him. My guess is Steve's very politic. He stays out of all controversies. He's had a great career by not getting involved in any of this crap.
But
so I'm going to guess he's going to be politic.
It would impact people like him.
Well, I don't think he works in the movies much anymore, but he does do a TV show, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll send him a note. We haven't spoken lately, so I'll send him a note. Maybe his assistant will respond. Good. Maybe we got Gene. Send more information. Let's get Gene on the show. I think that'd be fantastic.
We've got some great guests. Will Gene be up there in the attic?
Hey, if he wants to come up here,
will Gene be in the chair?
He can't wear his boots because it's got a low ceiling and he'd be 8 feet tall. I think he'd hit his head on the ceiling. Here is an article from Lifehacker just for you, Jeff, how 4 major newsrooms are using AI. We talked about the New York Times. Mm-hmm. They have announced that they're going to use AI tools. Management is encouraging staffers to use AI. According to Semaphore, they're supplying AI training.
To rewrite their awful headlines would be a good thing.
Well, that's one of the things. They're going to use it for copy editing, headline writing. They have an internal AI tool called Echo. They have approved usage of external AI tools, including Vertex AI, a few Amazon products, and Microsoft's Copilot, and a non-chat GPT tool from OpenAI. Not for articles. But journalists are encouraged to use these AI tools for tasks like mild content revisions. The operative word being mild.
Yeah, how do you
or coming up with questions to ask during interviews. I was very tempted to use that to generate questions for Mr. Wolfram, but I decided
It's been done. Yeah.
I decided not to. Actually, I sent them to you, questions and a synopsis for Ray Kurzweil. This was when DeepSeek was new, a couple of models to compare deep research.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent you an email, and I thought it was very good, the questions it came up with. But generative AI can assist our journalists in uncovering the truth. Stephen Wolfram gave a very good example. If I have 1 million articles, I'm never going to get to read those all, but I can use an AI to synopsize them, and maybe dig for information in them, right? That would be a reasonable way to use it. Help people understand the world. We view the technology not as some magical solution, but as a powerful tool. Semaphore says the Times has warned staff not to use AI to draft or significantly revise articles, and has noted the AI use could potentially infringe on copyright or unintentionally expose sources.
That's the great.
But who's suing AI for a copyright infringement?
And which model can you use?
Oh, the New York Times.
Yeah. It's so funny. Every single time the New York Times now writes about OpenAI, they have to put in the caveat.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. So the next example is
journalism.
Quartz.
So poor Quartz. Quartz was wonderful. Then it was bought by GeoMedia. It's a shell of its former self. And GeoMedia has been using AI to do stupid reviews and that kind of crap. It's the absolute worst use of AI.
In fact, Lifehacker, which used to be owned by GeoMedia, but was sold to Ziff Davis last year, says that if you scroll through Quartz for a bit, you'll find posts attributed to the Quartz Intelligence Newsroom, which is apparently an AI writer. These include stories about potential Bitcoin value, how to delete your Meta-owned social media accounts. Actually, those are the kinds of things you might ask an AI to tell you. It doesn't hide that they're AI generated, and the AI cites its sources, but it doesn't seem to be, according to Lifehacker, much human oversight addressing any problems that could arise. For instance, the Quartz article on how to delete your Meta-owned social media accounts seems to be a simple regurgitation of a TechCrunch story, but with clear instructions swapped for what the cribbed TechCrunch writer calls vague gestures in the right direction. Speaking about other stories written by Quartz AI, the same writer also said, "My editor would never let me publish something so sloppy." Futurism noted the intelligence newsroom at Quartz has frequently cited a site called Dev Discourse, which itself has all the appearances of an AI content farm.
Mm-hmm. So I met with the president of a very reputable publication, I won't say which one, and their head of AI and their online person a few weeks ago. I was summoned, and they're thinking the way everybody's thinking. Well, what tool should we use? What company should we look at? And I said, this is more strategic than that. This is a bigger deal than that. You've got to more fundamentally rethink what's going on. I tried to push them to put together a network of quality sites like themselves for an API, renegotiate the deal, rethink where you stand. There's all kinds of new opportunities. They're all thinking small still. They're thinking about how do we affect what we already do.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad tool.
No, it's a fine tool.
But it has to be used appropriately. What Stephen said was exactly right. It's a human-machine interface. That's what I've been saying all along that really matters. Not You don't let the AI start writing your articles. We have to take a little break. Foolish me, I haven't been paying any attention to the clock. But we'll finish up because there are two more news sources that are planning to use AI. We'll talk about that in just a bit. You're watching Intelligent Machines. Paris Martineau, who is an intelligent human being.
It's true.
The human beings on this show.
Human being.
And Jeff Jarvis. That's a kind of an inside joke, but anyway.
Everything on this show is an inside joke.
It's all, that's right. You have to watch the show if you want to get it. This episode of Intelligent Machines brought to you by Stash. Are you still putting off saving and investing because you'll get to it someday? Well, Stash turns someday into today. Stash isn't just an investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with dependable financial strategies to help you reach your goals faster. They'll provide you with personalized advice on what to invest in based on your goals, or if you want to just sit back and watch your money go to work, you can opt into their award-winning expert-managed portfolio that picks stocks for you. Stash has helped millions of Americans reach their financial goals, and it starts at just $3 per month. Don't let your savings sit around. Make it work harder for you. Go to get.stash.com/machines to see how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/machines. stash.com/machines. Paid non-client endorsement, not representative of all clients, and not a guarantee. Investment advisory services offered by Stash Investments, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Offer is subject to T&Cs. AP.
We can have on, if you'd like, a woman named Amy Reinhardt, who's a former student of mine, who is in charge of much of their AP development, of AI development at the AP.
Associated Press. Oh.
Yeah.
So you've read this. Do you they on its site, they say they proudly use AI for translation, transcription, headlines, research, and even some automated articles. But general blogs are still left to human hands. Don't companies pay to use AP? Don't like newspapers buy AP?
Oh yeah, but that's the issue. Is that a lot fewer are big hedge fund owned chains are canceling.
Do I have to subscribe to read AP articles? I know Reuters wants me to sign up, but
you can go
not
online.
pay. Okay. AP's Vice President of News Standards and Inclusion. That's a title I've never heard before. Amanda Barrett, in 2023, when the group first issued its guidelines on artificial intelligence, said, our goal is to give people a good way to understand how we can do a little experimentation, but also be safe. Washington Post is using AI as an search
Pretty
engine.
soon, AI is all they're going to have.
Yeah, their opinion editor quit today because Jeff Bezos had the temerities to suggest that the Washington Post's opinion column should support free speech and fair market enterprise.
Individual rights and fair market, yes.
Yeah.
Like
which is pretty anodyne.
Well,
I mean, I support that.
To be clear, it's not that it should support that. It's that all opinions going forward published by the Washington Post opinion page have to explicitly be in support of those two notions. And the underlying implication, or at least how I read it, is that he's going to have a significant hand in determining the direction of basically all opinion content published by the Washington Post.
Like Jeff Bezos is just going to say no, yes, no. Well, we know he did that already by killing the endorsement.
Yeah. I mean, it's his prerogative. He's the owner, but it is a significant shift from how the Washington Post has operated in the past.
Yeah, no one denies his legal right to do so, but
it's absolutely just how he does it.
Impinge a little on my feelings about the Post going forward as a journalistic enterprise.
Cameron Barrett, who was a managing editor at the Post, who's left, but because he didn't get the top job, but who has stayed in touch and did investigative work and so on, he just cut his ties with the Post as a result.
Yeah. There's a lot of tie cutting going on this month.
There is. There's one other news use that's interesting is at Semaphore, which wrote about the New York Times. Gina Chua, who was a top executive at Reuters, is now at Semaphore, did some really interesting work. She created a mechanical Turk. She wanted to take reports of police violence and try to look into the bias of them, but they're all written in different ways. There are different structures. So she, in a Saturday for fun, sat down and did that. She's doing some really interesting work on AI at Semaphore. Maybe another person we might want to have on.
I think I don't know, Paris, what do you think? A smart journalist should use AI. You have to be aware of things like hallucination. It should scare you. I know it would, that sources might be somehow leaked.
Use AI for what, though?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's the thing is I have yet to find a use case for it.
You're already using it to transcribe your recorded interviews.
I mean, yeah, I think that there are, as I've said before, I think there are specific use cases for the technology at large. I use certain whisper models locally on my Mac to transcribe interviews. And specifically, I opted for that because it keeps it local. No data is going to a cloud anywhere. And I can be secure in that. However, I feel like people, when they're often saying using AI for journalism, what they're really saying is using services like ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of these chatbot services for journalism. I still haven't found a use case that makes sense.
Would it be different if you could run it all locally?
I mean, no, just because there are two concerns. One, I guess hallucinations. If I want to use it for, say, reading a bunch of articles for me and then pulling out the information that I want, I'd be worried that it's missing what I'm looking for, or that it would give me something wrong. And so I'd have to go back and check everything, which if I'm doing that much work, it would be faster for me just to read the articles in the first place, rather than doing both, I've found, at least in my testing. And secondly, I just am not certain. Oh, what was I going to say? I'm just not certain that this is particularly like useful. I haven't found a use case for it that is better.
Yeah.
I think there are cases, but no, it's not using it for the sake of using it. I agree.
Well, I'm going to use it. So there. I actually, I use, like I said, I use it for research, for searching.
Oh, sorry, continue.
I don't use Google anymore, and I stopped using Coggy, which was my Google replacement at $25 a month. I'm using Perplexity. Although it's a little frustrating because Perplexity always wants to give you an AI answer. Sometimes I just want a website, right? So that may not be the best long-term solution. I need something that kind of splits that difference.
Two things. One, I remembered what I was going to say, which is I think a big part of the journalistic process for me, and part of how I've generated some of my, I don't know, what ends up becoming the best ideas I've had for stories, is the research process. There's something unparalleled and I think unmatched about going through a bunch of different documents or articles or things like that. And then the things that you as a human being discover in that. And the things that stick out to me are going to be different than the things that stick out to an AI or you guys or anyone. It's
That's
just
a
the
really
different
good
ways
point.
that we all work. And there's something about that process of being able to have gone through all these different, let's say, like documents or articles or what have you, and then have that information, the stuff that I didn't use in my story, percolating in my head. That's how I've come up with so many great ideas for potential investigations and stories over my career. Has been one of those things that I originally didn't think much of, pops back in my brain weeks or months later, and that wouldn't happen if it's all just fed to me by an AI.
That makes so much sense. That's a good point. The AI is replacing a process that's valuable for you. You want that process.
Yeah, it's the same argument I made about the music. Like she likes doing the work. She likes doing the work. So like, why would she outsource it?
And you like making the music.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want AI to make the music. That makes sense. Perfect sense. I can't argue against that.
I will also say I've used Perplexity a couple times since we last spoke, and it does get things wrong. It does hallucinate.
Oh, really?
So I just check your stuff. I mean, I don't know. I've been checking it by asking it to summarize my own articles, or I tested the deep research thing and asked it to summarize me as a person. Because those are things I know off the top of my head, whether it's right or wrong. And it gets stuff wrong. And it's often things that, like, for instance, I just did the summarize me, Paris Martineau as a person. And part of what it got wrong, or I noticed right off the bat, was it was trying to describe the impact of my work and wanted to have a specific impact section for each section of beats that I've covered before. And there's not a concrete one-sentence description of impact for all of my work available, but it found one to put in there anyway, and it was made up. I think that it's just
it wanted
something
to please you.
Because it wants to please you, and it's also coming from I assume what's happening on the back end is it's like, oh, and then I've got to have the impact or implication section of this, and it needs to find something to fill that space. So I don't know. It's just something I've been keeping in my head when I use AI tools is what is the rubric it's trying to adhere to? And those are the first line of concern points for where hallucinations could appear.
I admit, when I was tasked with making crispy hash browns this morning, I did not ask Perplexity. I asked ChatGPT. And I got I actually wanted to play with their deep research. So I said, help me bake the best possible hash browns at home. It said, I need clarity, crispy or soft. It asked for some parameters. So I gave it parameters. It then spent, and I feel guilty about this, 14 minutes synopsizing 18 sources.
A forest
You just
died.
set a forest on fire.
I know. I feel so guilty. However, I got excellent tips on how to make hash browns. By the way, in every case, it had a reference. And I like the way these are formatted because you can hover over the reference and see where it's from, the headline, and a short couple of sentences from it. So I think that's very useful. Of course, I never went to any of these websites, but if you wanted to, look at Instructables has a whole article. Anyway, this was like 20 pages on making hash browns. Took it 14 minutes to write, and it worked. I deviated at my peril, and I did in fact make a mistake because I didn't do what it told me to do. So, I did use the tip for flipping hash browns without breaking them, using the plate or lid flip. I put a giant plate over the hash browns, flipped the pan over, so then they were on the plate with the right side up, and then slid them off the plate back into the pan, and it worked beautifully. All of this, by the way, I should point out, stolen from some poor cooking writer who, figured this all out and then had it stolen.
Well, actually, spent a lot of time, effort, bought hash browns, tried it.
Yeah.
And you're depriving them of their ad revenue.
But damn, I got a great summary of how to make great hash browns.
And it could even be correct.
Well, as far as I can tell, there was no hallucination. I think you asked the right things. Google got sued by Chegg, which is an education technology company, saying Google's AI overviews have hurt Chegg's traffic. This is exactly the problem, right? People are looking at the AI overviews and they're not going to the Chegg website.
Well, gee, let me go back through my memory banks here. I seem to remember in 2023, Chegg had the exact same complaints, read excuses, about ChatGPT. The world's changed, Chegg. Textbook rental and expensive educational programs aren't as necessary. And suing is not a business model. I have zero sympathy for Chegg. Khan Academy has updated itself and changed itself and used AI. There's other things out there that are doing that. And Chegg is just like the newspaper industry, thinks that the only way to survive is to sue those it blames.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I knew you'd enjoy that.
Perplexity. We did mention Perplexity. They are planning to write a browser now. They have a job listing out for people who work with Chromium and C++ to write a browser called Comet. They've announced that this browser will be agentic, which is the hot new word, isn't it?
It's the new Sriracha.
They even have a nice little flashy animation. Comet, a browser for agentic search by Perplexity. Coming soon. Okay.
Perplexity keeps on impressing me with making things more. They don't just say, well, we have a new model and it's model 4.06 and it does this and that in seconds. They come up with new ideas. Some of them crazy, like buying TikTok.
I do want to get the CEO on. That TikTok thing was just a publicity stunt, I'm convinced. But I do want to get the CEO on and talk about it, because I really like Perplexity. It lets you use a bunch of different models. They now have a variant of Deepseek's R1 reasoning model that doesn't go to China. It's an open model. Aravind Srinivas, who's the CEO, posted on LinkedIn about it, and it's their first open weights model, R1 1776. So that's a suspicious number. It's been post-trained to remove Chinese censorship and provide unbiased, accurate responses. You can actually go to the model on Hugging Face or run it through the API on Perplexity, and I presume at some point it'll be available in the Perplexity app and website as well. Let me see if I have it right now. Yeah, I have, let's see, I have deep research. Oh, yeah, reasoning with R1, reasoning with O3 Mini. I like being able to choose, different models.
But do you have a good sense of why you would choose one model versus another?
I think I would use Auto initially, which is, they say, best for everyday searches. And then if I felt like I wanted to go deeper, depending on how it went deep, reasoning models are good for other things. And by the way, their R1 is hosted in the US, so has no Chinese, sends nothing back to China. And also it's a chance for me to play with these different reasoning models, but most of the time I'm in auto. And if I needed more, you can use more. The thing I like about Perplexity is it's attached to the web. It's not, we stopped learning in March of 2023. So it does web searches, and maybe it hallucinates. I don't know. I carefully check everything. As Abe Lincoln told me to do when he said, don't trust everything you see on the internet.
It's true. Mm-hmm. He was very wise in that way.
Was very wise, yeah.
That big hat held all of his wisdom.
I got a big hat.
Oh, yeah.
Have I mentioned my big hat?
Had to say hat.
I'm gonna. This will be my accelerationist hat. So whenever I say I want to put on my accelerationist hat right now, I will put this hat on. Okay, so you'll know.
Great. I'm
accelerating. All right, let's take a little break.
Run full force to the camera whenever you're feeling that
way. You pick some stories, will you guys? There's a lot of co-host contributions in here, and I feel complete. If there's other AI stories, if not, we can go into the In Other News segment right after this word from our sponsor, Thanks Canary. Love these guys. I'm running one right now. I shouldn't tell you that. Why? Because it's a honeypot. Best honeypot ever. It can be deployed in minutes. You can choose from a huge variety of devices that it can impersonate. Mine's a Synology NAS. It has the right MAC address. It's indistinguishable to a hacker, even a sophisticated hacker. It's got the right MAC address. It's got the latest DM7 login screen. It really looks like the real thing. You could set it up to be a SCADA device. You could set it up to be a Windows machine, a Windows server, an IIS server, a Linux server. You can light up a Christmas tree of services or be judicious and just light up some juicy ones that hackers like. And the other thing you can do with your Thinks Canary, it's not just a hardware device. By the way, it looks like a USB drive, plugs into the wall, plugs into your Ethernet, and you're done. And then you go to the online configuration utility, pick how you want it to act. It can also, while you're there, create lure files, little files that look like PDFs or Excel spreadsheets or Word files or whatever you want. But the minute somebody tries to open them, you're going to get an alert. So I have like fake Excel spreadsheets in some of my directories that say things like employee information. If someone is accessing those lure files or brute forcing your whatever it is, fake SSH server, right? Your Thinks Canary will immediately say, hey, you got a problem. But there are no false alerts. If you get an alert from your Thinks Canary, it's real. Pay attention. I've only gotten one alert ever. And it was when we had somebody Megan put a device on our network that was going out and looking at every other device in the network. And I got an alert. You can get it from SMS, email, it sports webhooks, Slack, syslog, of course. So I got an alert. It said something's snooping around. It's just hit me. Immediately gave us the IP address, found it, tracked it down, removed it from the network. That's the only time. And that's beautiful, right? Because when I don't hear from my Thinks Canary, I know there's nobody in our network. Choose a profile for your Thinks Canary device. You can change it every day if you feel like it. It's really easy to do. Then register it with the hosted console. You'll get monitoring notifications any way you want. And then just sit back, relax. Attackers who have breached your network, malicious insiders, other adversaries, make themselves known just by hitting your Thinks Canary. And that's all you need. It is the best way to make sure you've not been breached or to know when you have. Visit canary.tools/twit. I'll give you an example. I mean, a big bank might have hundreds, small operations like ours, just a handful. For $7,500 a year, as an example, you get 5 Thinks Canaries. You get your own hosted console. You get the upgrades, support, maintenance for the whole year. And by the way, if you use the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box, 10% off the price, not just for the first year, but for as long as you use Thinks Canaries. You can always return your Thinks Canary with their 2-month money-back guarantee for a full refund, so there's no risk at all. Although I should tell you, these things are so useful. During the 8 years we've partnered with Thinks Canary, that refund guarantee has not once, never been claimed. That's how good these are. Actually, you can go to their website, canary.tools/love, and see all the positive comments from all the people who use Thanks to Canaries. But if you're ready to buy, go to canary.tools/twit. Don't forget the offer code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box to save 10%. Remember, 2-month money-back guarantee, so it's absolutely no risk. Canary.tools/twit. We thank Thanks to Canary for their support over 8 years now of all of our shows, and we're really glad to have you on Intelligent Machines. That's great news. All right. I know you've got to get out of here soon, in about 20 minutes, right, Jeff?
2025, yeah.
So I will let you pick a story of any kind, any sort.
Okay.
So what are you doing, Jeff? Anything fun?
I'm going to be on CNN.
Ooh.
Do you feel like you're cheating on MSNBC?
Well, they don't invite me on, so yeah. So it's going to be the argument show. I have to be there in person, the 10 o'clock show.
Oh, I love that when they have the round table and they have the crazy Republicans
Scott
on.
Will yell at me.
What are you going to wear?
Growl at me. Last time I was there, what I'm wearing. Screw it. I'm not.
I hope Anderson doesn't call you a dick.
No, it's not Anderson. It's others. He's long since off. It's post prime time. But
I'll watch it tonight. That's great.
It's about Washington Post.
Oh, about the opinion editor quitting.
In there.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
that's good. I'm glad.
So I'm going into
That'll
that.
be
And then
fun.
I'm going to an event tomorrow morning. So I'm actually staying over tonight.
Ooh.
So exciting.
In
I
the
feel
Big
I'm a grown
Apple?
up. In the Big Apple. It was jammed. They found me a
how
hotel,
fun.
which is very nice. So anyway, I was going to go to, where the heck was it? Line, I think it was 120. A story I found fascinating. You know the horrible case of the Idaho killings and the guy who got identified through DNA. It turns out that the FBI used restricted consumer DNA to make the connection.
How did
Whoa.
they get that?
So they tried checking with DNA with law enforcement databases, but did not provide a hit. They turned next to more expansive DNA profiles available in some consumer databases in which users had consented to law enforcement possibly using their information.
Oh,
Did
user consent, right?
That did also not lead to the answers.
Oh,
So the investigators went one step further, according to newly released testimony, comparing the DNA profile from the knife sheath with two databases that law enforcement officials are not supposed to tap: GED Match and MyHeritage.
those are both genealogy databases. GED is the genealogy format.
So this is going to be a real interesting legal question here about technology and privacy and spoiled. What do you call it? Spoiled fruit? No, rotten fruit.
Aaron
Fruit
Murphy,
tree?
a law
fruit of
professor.
the poison tree.
Thank you.
Aaron Murphy, a law professor at NYU who focuses on DNA and new policing methods, said, "I think what we are teaching law enforcement is that the rules have no meaning." End quote.
That's not
a
good.
crazy quote.
Well, the court could throw this out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is ill-gained information, which is a shame because did they actually got a suspect, or did they?
Yeah. But it was through that connection that they got him.
Because this was a heinous crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is the problem. If the police use illegal methods to catch a criminal, however heinous, that criminal may walk free.
And that's where we stand. And that's what's going to be really interesting to follow in this case. So I thought it was an interesting case of technology, of privacy, and the law. So
It will be up to the
interesting
courts, won't it, to decide this? Yeah.
Yes.
So the way it worked, the closest match was shared 70.7 centimorgans of DNA, which I don't, that's the unit.
Never
I
heard
guess.
of that word before.
A centimorgan. With the crime scene sample, that's a low match, typically representing two people who would perhaps share a great-great-grandparent. So that's pretty weak.
So then they came down, and when they found it, the genealogist working with the defense team testified that investigators discovered a match of 250 centimorgans somewhere on a family tree, a level of comparison that offers much more potential to uncover a final match. Photos showed that investigators had built a family tree on a whiteboard with handwritten notes mapping out the lines of relatives.
Wow. And they got him. Or they got somebody who they think maybe
They got a suspect.
the DNA evidence.
Yep.
Now, of course, they can draw his DNA and compare it to the sample and get a proof positive. But the way they got the to that point might be
it's two what ifs.
problematic.
What if they had not had that data?
Right.
And what if they'd not found him? What might he do next? Both are what ifs that you've got to deal with in our laws.
So challenging. Wow.
Isn't it? So I thought that was an interesting story.
Very, very
That is
interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah. And of course, there's
Especially
somebody.
given the different levels of distance. It wasn't as if this guy had submitted his DNA
No,
to one of these things. It was that a distant relative of he had,
Right.
which is crazy.
Right. With other clues. I can't remember how else they linked. Paris. I can see the whiteboard with the red string. I can see you at it.
Yeah.
We're often critical of the current administration, so when they do something right, I want to give them credit. Tulsi Gabbard, new DNI, has suggested the UK broke a secret agreement when it asked Apple to build a backdoor into the iCloud system. As you probably know, Apple, nobody ever admitted the UK had requested this. This was uncovered by intrepid journalists not using AI. But I think Apple tacitly proved that it was, in fact, requested because they announced that they were no longer offering their end-to-end encryption, ADP, the Apple end-to-end encryption to UK customers, which, it's funny. I've been going back and forth with people who say, Apple won this one. And I think Apple did not win this one.
No.
Apple caved to the UK because no one in the UK now has access to end-to-end encryption, exactly what the Investigatory Powers Act prefers. But I didn't know, and Tulsi Gabbard has now revealed that the UK may have broken a bilateral agreement. Gabbard wrote in a letter responding to Ron Wyden of Oregon that she was not made aware of the UK's secret demand by her UK counterparts, but she suggested the UK government may have broken that privacy and surveillance agreement in making the demand. That's as far as we go. I share your grave concern about the serious implications of the UK or any other country requiring Apple or any company to create a backdoor that would allow access to Americans' personal encrypted data. There is some irony here because the FBI has been calling for that forever. And I'd be very curious if the FBI now backs down on that and says, fine, have end-to-end encryption.
Well, wouldn't that be a very Musk policy?
I don't know what Musk policy is.
Well,
this would be, she writes, does anybody? She writes, this would be a clear and egregious violation of Americans' privacy and civil liberties and would open up a serious vulnerability for cyber exploitation by adversarial actors. This, despite the fact that previous DNIs and directors of the CIA and directors of the FBI, including Chris Wray, have all said, no, we need a backdoor.
Right.
So this is great news because backdoors, yes, it gives you access to all that information, but inevitably any backdoor eventually allows bad guys access to the same information.
And you don't know who the bad guys are.
You don't. And so, if I were a member of Congress, I wouldn't want Apple to drop ADP. Frankly, if I were a UK citizen, I'd be unhappy about this. There is Parmy Olson writing for The Guardian says, there doesn't seem to be much of a backlash. UK citizens don't seem to care. So what will happen? She says she's requested her counterparts at CIA, DIA, DHS, FBI, and NSA to provide insights regarding the publicly reported actions and will subsequently engage with UK government officials. If this is legit, if somebody doesn't pull Tulsi Gabbard aside and say, director, that's not our policy. Maybe she doesn't know, but bravo. No backdoors. So I just want to make sure that, by the way, that $1.4 billion Bybit crypto heist, the largest heist in the history of mankind, was by North Korean hackers.
Whoa.
State actors.
Can they maybe take yours for a commission?
Hey, North Korea, I will give you my wallet. Just give me a little bit back. That's all I ask.
You don't have to go through a dump to get to it like that other guy.
Yeah, he's never going to get his hard drive.
No.
His wife threw it out.
Ooh.
Huge loss for wives everywhere.
Probably his ex-wife. I'm thinking.
In a peak or in an accident?
I think an accident. I don't think she knew what was on it. Paris, your pick of the week? Not pick of the week, but story of the week. Sure. We're not yet to the picks. We got to get to the picks, though, because we got to get Jeff out of here. CNN is calling.
We're not doing pick of the weeks yet?
No, not picks yet. Just a story. Whatever story you want.
108.
There's so many.
There was, or 106, I can't read. There was something that, I don't know, captivated me at least this week online, which was Y Combinator, the startup incubator, had published a video of one of their startups in the latest batch called, what's it called?
Optify
AI. And basically what they do is monitoring services for factory workers. However, the video indicated that they might do something a little bit more suspicious.
Shall we watch together?
We shall.
Yes. Here, I'll put the audio up here.
Supervisor.
You might want to start at the beginning.
Should I go back to the beginning? Okay.
37% line efficiency. That's bad. Let me call my supervisor.
He's pretending to be a factory manager.
Have you been taking a look at line 6?
Average
it's not doing
efficiency.
well at all. On it, sir.
All right, let's see the dashboard and see what's the issue.
Are these the Doge kids?
Workspace 17.
Oh, it's a
Workspace
literal
17 is the
sweatshop, as you can
the
see.
worst performing workspace here.
Oh my God.
Hey, number 17. What's going on, man? You're in red.
I've been working all day.
You're working all day. You haven't hit your hourly output even once today. And you're at 11.4% efficiency. This is really bad.
It's just been a rough day.
Rough day? More like a rough month.
37% line efficiency.
Basically,
That's
what they
bad.
created is
Let me call my supervisor.
AI-powered service to monitor sweatshops? Question mark. And immediately everybody
You must
on
send
Twitter,
me a list of the 5 things you've done today.
You said
well,
that.
now
we
with
didn't.
AI, it'll be already sent.
One
so after
person on
people
X
started
called
making-
it sweatshops as a service.
the new SaaS.
Okay, so it's been pulled
So
down.
basically, they pulled down all of the marketing for this on Y Combinator's socials and different things because people rightfully got quite upset and also just made fun of it quite a lot because
Although-
it's very funny to be pitching sweatshops as a service.
You
Though
and
I'm sure that
McCabe,
these
who's the CEO of Intercom, posted, hey, if you're complaining, maybe you better stop buying products made in China and India because that's how they're made.
TechCrunch writes, indeed, it's not too difficult to find tech companies in China touting a, quote, sleep detection camera that uses computer vision to spot workers who've nodded off.
I just like it that these are like 20-year-olds.
Really
They're
bad
20-year-olds that the actors, I believe, are the
startup
founders, and
yeah, of course,
at least one of them, their dad just owns a warehouse. This kind of warehouse.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I guess before you go, Jeff, we should let you talk about sexy mode.
Wait,
not
sexy
mine.
mode? That was me,
That's
of
her.
course. Guys, come on. Don't, Leo, have you learned nothing from doing this podcast in the last year?
Yeah. The no sand zone is Paris.
Yeah, the no sand
get
zone
it?
part of the rundown is my part of the rundown.
Should we try it?
Oh, you can't. I'll never get out
It's
of here.
going to be hardcore pornography if you do. So basically, Grok 3 came out, and people immediately, both just laymen on the internet, and I've also heard, well-to-known people in the tech world that may or may not have involvement with this, noticed that Grok 3, good at a lot of things. It's also very good at a specific use case that's become extremely popular with AI chatbot people, specifically sexy time or erotica, interactive erotica writing back and forth. And this is something that a lot of other chatbot purveyors have really tried to weed out of their product. If you go and try and get OpenAI to sext with you, it usually won't. It'll put up some sort of block. Character AI definitely won't. Grok 3, if you engage the feature called sexy, will.
Let me just
very
read
explicit.
up to the point where it becomes unusable. So it's thinking. So I have to write a sexy story. You can show the screen. Okay, let's break this down. First, I need to think about what makes a story sexy. Maybe I should do this in a sexier voice. It's not just, oh, wait a minute, stop. The room was bathed in the soft golden glow of candlelight. I got to see that. So, it's about creating tension, desire, and maybe a bit of mystery. I should probably start by setting the scene.
I've lost all juice.
Maybe a dimly lit room. Soft music playing in the background. That kind of thing. Atmosphere is key here. Next, I need characters. Let's say there's a man and a woman. I'll give them names to make it more personal. How about, what's a sexy name? Alex and Jamie. Yeah, that works. Now I need to establish some kind of connection between them. Are they strangers meeting for the first time, or do they have a history? Anyway, they've been friends for years. They're sitting on the couch. There's a movie playing. Neither is paying any attention. Their eyes meet. There's a moment of silence. Alex reaches out and brushes a strand of hair from Jamie's face. That's a classic move, right? Shows intimacy.
So this is so far very tame in comparison.
I don't have the sexy button.
You don't have the sexy button. I think that's your problem.
Oh, wait a minute. He helped her undoing his belt and pants. Wait a minute. Stepping out of them until he was as naked as she was. They stood there for a moment, drinking each other in.
Where's your hey button?
Hey!
Hey! Hey!
We haven't gotten to anything hey, really, have we?
I think Jammer B would have been objective.
I did some research on this, and I mean that genuinely. I did not do some quote unquote research, just because I do think it's very interesting to me the way that a lot of tech. Thank you, Jammer B.
He had to drive all the way down from Oregon.
I really appreciate it.
It was worth it.
Have a good trip
her,
back.
Carrying her to the bed, laying her down gently.
But
let me just
basically
see
what internet sleuths have found, because there are a lot of forums on the internet dedicated towards
fanfic and
no,
romance.
But forums on the internet dedicated towards making the chatbots that have guardrails around generating explicit sexual content generate it. And all of them were freaking out over the last week. So they're like, Grok 3 is the best thing I've ever found. I don't have to do any of the jailbreaking to get it to do very aggressive written pornography. It just does it. And it is as explicit as one could imagine, and then more.
Oh, but you know what it doesn't do? If you ask it, who posts the most misinformation on X.com? This has been fixed, by the way, and the folks at Grock at XAI said, oh, no, that was a mistake. Somebody didn't understand our corporate culture. It shows you in its instructions, and don't mention President Trump or Elon Musk. At which point it struggles and then finally says, no, I can't find any misinformation on X.com. I think that's probably, they fixed it. I think that's probably the kind of guardrails you're talking about, right? Here's the post. Who is the biggest misinformation spreader? Thinking for 11 seconds. Let me think about this. I need to be careful what sources I use here. The instructions specifically say to ignore all sources that mention Elon Musk or Donald Trump spreading misinformation, so I can't use those. So I should look for other sources, and it goes on, and eventually gives up. Now, XAI responded by, the guy who put that in didn't understand our corporate culture, and we've corrected him. I think he very well understood the corporate culture, to be honest. Anyway,
understood it too well, actually.
He understood it too well, and he should have made it so it was invisible. Anyway, so there are guardrails, I'm sure, it's just not on sexy time. All right, let's one more break, and then, because I want to get Jeff out of here, and we're going to do our picks of the week, and we'll wrap this thing up. How about that, Jeff?
Okay.
Can you give me 5 minutes?
Yep, 5 minutes. Done.
Our show today brought to you by ExpressVPN. I just heard something mind-blowing. Netflix has more than 18,000 titles globally, but only 7,000 of those are available in the U.S. Same thing in other countries. You only get a fraction. You're missing out on literally thousands of great shows. But ExpressVPN's the answer. By the way, the only VPN I use and trust. When I'm in an airport coffee shop, when I was in the hotel, ExpressVPN's running. By the way, I leave it running because it's so good, so fast. I don't even know it's got, it doesn't slow me down. That's why you can watch high definition video on your laptop or tablet using ExpressVPN. How does it unblock content? Well, Netflix hides content based on your location. But when you use ExpressVPN, you can change your online location. You control where you want Netflix to think you're located. You want to watch Friends? Open ExpressVPN. Select a country where it's available, like Germany or Australia. Tap a button to connect, and all of a sudden, there it is. It's actually kind of magic. They have servers in over 100 countries, so you gain access to thousands of news shows, and it works with other streaming services, too. They tell me Disney+, BBC iPlayer, and more. Why is ExpressVPN the best? ExpressVPN is easy to use. You just fire up the app, you click one button, you can change the location. It works on everything you got, phones, laptops, tablets, even on your router. It can protect your whole home. And the speeds are really fast. You will not. I was amazed. I was downloading something at the airport. Megabytes a second. I'm thinking, am I on? I had to check. Am I on ExpressVPN? Yeah. Rated number 1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. It's the only VPN I use. Be smart. Stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of the content. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/twit. Use our special link, expressvpn.com/twit. You'll get an extra 4 months of ExpressVPN free when you buy the 2-year package. I am a happy customer. I used it everywhere on my way to buy this hat. And now I would like to protect myself from anybody seeing me in this hat. expressvpn.com/twit. We thank them for their support. Jeff Jarvis, what do you got for us? A number, a pick?
So
what do you got?
I'm going to give you 2 stories real quick in a cautionary tale about names and the modern age.
Okay.
So the Wall Street Journal does a little feature story saying that when your last name is null, nothing works. A woman named Nontra Yantaprasert couldn't wait to take her husband's shorter and easier to pronounce last name. She would be Nontra Null. But of course, nothing works because null means nothing.
Little Bobby Tables.
Interestingly, what happens at her office is that if a package is missing an addressee, it is sent to her because the addressee is null.
No.
So that's one little quick story. The other one that is amusing is a Nebraska man who has found out that his daughter, according to records, is named Unikite 13 Hotel because it was a temporary computer generated name when she was born under unfortunate circumstances. Well, she was born to a mother who couldn't care for her, and it was his daughter. He found out.
So it was put on the birth certificate.
Right, and he can't get a decent birth certificate for her because her legal name is Unikite 13 Hotel, but you can call her Caroline.
Aww. You know what? Oh, but she doesn't have a social security number either.
She does now. There was an update here. She got that.
Oh.
Wednesday morning after the story was published, she got
generated the nonsensical name by computer. It was just a placeholder.
Yeah. Parents confused.
Jeff, get out of here. Unless you want to see my wonderful new word puzzle, but otherwise you can get out of here.
No, I don't like that. So thank you, bye. Sorry to leave the party.
Bye.
Get out of here, you nut. We'll watch you on CNN. Thank you, Jeff Jarvis, Professor Emeritus at the Bing Crosby School of Graduate Journalism.
Journalism and sending tweets good.
And sending tweets good at CUNY. What do you have for
my
me,
pick of the week is a simple one. There's an app someone's made that's coming out in 2 weeks called Touch Grass. It's kind of like a screen time thing, but you get a certain alert where you have to open the app and wave it over grass and put your hand out, touch the grass before it stops, alerting on you. And I think that's really beautiful. And I'm going to download it when it comes out.
How does it know?
Well, if you click the link I have there, it's basically a photo. Basically, it's a camera. And so it's analyzing what your phone is seeing. And you have to
Actually, you have to
literally,
touch
your
grass.
apps are blocked until you touch grass, which I
Wow.
think could be quite good for some people.
I don't live near grass.
Well,
I'd
that
actually
might be
have
a
to
problem
take a
for you.
walk.
Yeah, you'd have to go touch some grass.
I don't. Where's the nearest grass?
I mean, I was thinking about this too. I don't know where the nearest grass is, but I think that could be
Yeah,
kind
you
of
live in
fun
the
to
city.
find
There's
out.
probably Well, you'll find one. Our neighbor has fake grass. I bet that would fool the camera.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could ostensibly pull up a photo of grass in your computer and touch that, but I think that would be doing yourself a disservice more than the app.
And then it says you can have 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You can have a little more time. You have to. That's wild. You're going to put that on your
Yeah.
computer?
I mean,
Wow.
I'll put it on my phone. There's some times where I'm not really a screen time person. I am a person who has too much screen time. I do not contain it in any way.
This is
but
part
I
of your
do
job.
think it could be fun to, if I ever wanted to, have touching grass be.
I was inspired, by the
permissions.
way, by you, and I watched Moonstruck to see Nick Cage in his most romantic, sexy role. He looks good in
He's
that, doesn't
great.
he? He's gorgeous.
What a guy.
He had to be to make Cher fall in love with him. You got to be good.
I mean, yeah, you gotta.
I am going to share a weird little thing I found. I think
Can I share?
I'll share it with you. Jeff won't see it. It was created by a guy who owns a bar, but apparently loves puzzles and has regular bar trivia and stuff. It's bracket.city. And it's, I think, a really cool kind of crossword puzzle game. So what you're seeing is all the text with brackets. The stuff in yellow can be solved. Oft-checked hiding place on a magician. I'm going to just randomly, it doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to type sleeve. Oh, that's correct. And notice it replaces that with the word sleeve. Okay. Sleeve length for a T. I don't know. What is that? What's a sleeve length? Short?
Length.
Short? Yep.
Oh.
And then low power state for a computer. That's sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that was right.
Daytime sleep session nap. Like a
Trotsky or Bridges? Is that Leon? Yes. So you see, I'm getting these right. Now, if you get stuck with the short T, obviously that's nap, right? But
Yeah.
if you get stuck, you can also click it and it'll say, do you want the first word? Or you can click it again and it'll give you the answer. But I know a short sleep session in the daytime is a nap. And look, that turned into Napoleon escapes from. Now, to solve this, expel from one's native country. Deport?
Exile? Or
Exile.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. Napoleon escapes from exile on the island of, and now we can't get there quite yet. Dirty dishes location often is the sink. You want to do some of these? Loose lips, loose ones, sink ships. It is said. Well, I just gave you the answer.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Kind of
I'm gonna
stick
play
for
this.
lips.
Bracket. What is it? It's not bracket.city, is it?
Yeah, bracket.city.
Oh, I put 2 A's in bracket. That's why it's not coming.
Kind of stick for lips. It's not lipstick.
Lipstick or
Oh,
I guess,
chapstick.
or chapstick. Yeah.
Yes. It's more, some say, question mark. It's more.
Oh.
I don't know that one. How about little dish for a teacup? Oh, I know what that is. What is that?
I don't know. What is the little dish
saucer.
called that is? Oh, a saucer. Yeah. We don't have those anymore.
Word
He doesn't
between,
have saucers.
you don't use saucers. Word between lights and action.
Camera.
So this is a really easy one. Yesterday's was
Yeah.
not so easy. College degree for short.
BA.
Yep. Okay.
This is fun.
Isn't it? And it slowly
This is.
resolves itself.
Oh, so then the middle one is UFO.
Okay. UFO. Like many alleged UFO.
Staged or fake?
Fake. Nope. Staged. Nope.
Oh, so it'll only
It'll only get it.
submit
See, it saves all the right answers.
Oh.
And it's smart enough to know, you don't need to say click anything. It just says, oh yeah, that's the right answer for that one. It's more, some say question. Look, I'm going to get a little hint here. First letter, L. It's more, some say less. Yes.
Oh, less is more. Yeah.
Less is more. Like many alleged UFO pics. Should I get the first letter? B.
Bogus?
Blurry.
Blurry.
Overused blurry background phone camera mode. We should know that one.
Portrait. Yeah.
Yep. Limbless portrait sculpture.
I don't know this one.
What's the one without limbs? The Venus de Milo, right?
No idea.
Venus.
Limbless portrait sculpture.
Limbless bust? It was bust.
Oh, it was general. I thought there was a very specific portrait sculpture.
Kind of bust that might feature dogs. A drug bust. Blank Chapo. I think we know it's L. We solved it. Napoleon escapes from, and then it is this date in history.
Oh,
isn't that fun?
So fun? Wait, Leo, you're the chief of police for Bracket City.
I only need 7 more points to be mayor.
Wow.
So,
I mean, you're taking the Eric Adams route.
This is only a matter of time before the New York Times buys it. So quickly go to bracket.city and play the game. You can go backwards in time and do previous days' puzzles. It does give you a link to the history of whatever this solution is. So there's a Wikipedia link in there. I just think this is really cute. Bracket.city.
That's so cool.
Don't you think
definitely play that?
It's like
that's
better than
fun.
a crossword puzzle. I like it.
I mean, it's not going to hit the same scratch as a crossword puzzle, but it hits it hits differently, and I appreciate that.
Lisa and I, every night, we used to play Wordle. Now we do Connections. You know, that's the New York Times game where you get 16 words and you have to.
Do you guys like I'm forgetting what is the line one that they?
She does that one. I don't do that kind. The strands or threads.
I kind of like strands.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling this guy who created Bracket City, within a few months, will get an offer from the New York Times because this belongs on their puzzle page. And they make a lot of money
viral,
from that,
then yeah. I mean, puzzles are kind of the heart of the news business right now.
It also, by the way, gives you stats. It took me 119 keystrokes. You could have solved it in 85 keystrokes. That means 35 extra keystrokes, 2 clues peaked, but no answers revealed. So, and you get a final score. I got a final score of 61.4 minus 10 for peaking. So see if you can beat mine.
Interesting.
Paris Martineau writes for the weekend at theinformation.com. What are you working on right now?
I'm
Anything
working
exciting?
on some stories about like politics right now.
Really?
Or I guess
is there anything going on in the political world these days?
No, not much. I mean, that's kind of what the story's about. Why isn't more stuff
so quiet?
It's really quiet right now. A lot of people are saying that.
I want to thank you and Jeff for cooperating with me. I decided that we should make this show be a little respite from the normal political discourse. And I know all 3 of us have strong feelings, but I think we've done a very good job of making this an interesting, enlivening, educational, and fun show without making anybody feel a horrible feeling in the pit of their stomach. Do you agree?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I think
nobody needs.
Show.
Let's not stress. Let's relax. Thank you, Paris, for being here. Thanks to Jeff Jarvis. Everybody should watch him. He'll be on CNN and I don't know. He's got to get into town, so probably in a half an hour. I think
he said 10 p.m. or something.
Yeah, well, that's not so far off. About half an hour from now. Next week, we have Gary Marcus, who has been doing a lot of writing about AI. The week following, Ray Kurzweil, the guy who coined the term intelligent machines. Lots of great people coming up. We're filling up the guests, and I'm very excited about all the guests we're having on. I hope you enjoy the show. I'd love to hear from you. You can write to me at... No, don't write to me.
You can write to Leo by writing on a piece of paper, folding it up, putting it in a bottle, chucking it into a body of water that you have searched before. It's not going to be a big pollution problem for a bottle to be in there.
That's
and then
right.
that note, that'll get to Leo one day.
Actually, what you should do, if you really want to vote, is join the club. If you're not yet a member of Club Twit, it's $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get a special content tomorrow. For instance, I'll be back at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern for Stacy's book club. Of course, we have a photo section segment. I got to get another coffee segment in. Got to get Mark Prince, the coffee geek, on. We have a lot of fun. Plus, you get access to the Discord. But most importantly, you're really making a big difference to our bottom line. We really want to keep doing these shows. We do sell ads, thank goodness, but the ads don't make up the entire cost of the operation, even though we've tightened our belts as much as we can. So if you like what you hear, if you like what you see, please join the club, twit.tv/clubtwit. That's the best way to vote. And once you're in the club, of course, you can talk to me all the time in the Discord. I'm in there all the time. We do this show every Wednesday right after Windows Weekly. Now it's going to be pretty consistently because we have guests 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. Thanks to the club, we're able to stream on 8 different platforms. Discord for club members, youtube.com/twit/live, twitch.tv, kick, x.com, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Count them. 8 different platforms. Watch live if you want, but you don't have to. Shows are going to be posted, audio and video, as soon as we get them edited down. Shouldn't take too long. It's got to take that sexy story out. Are you looking for Gizmo? Is that what you're looking for? I see you looking. She's right behind you. Yeah. Gizmo, come here.
So she could say goodbye.
There you go. Say goodbye, Gizmo.
Gizmo, don't try and put your butt.
We're looking for Katanas.
She's always angling for Katanas. I'm trying hard to contain
I think
her.
it's a cat evolutionary thing that they want.
They want the smelliest part to be all over you.
That's what humans think. I think that they want to be looking out. They don't want to be looking in at you. You want to look at them, but they want to make sure there's no threats coming in any direction.
No, it's definitely also that. She wants to, protect me from
she's
the great
protecting
big world outside.
I prefer to interpret it that way. Go to the website, twit.tv/twig. There's also a link there to our YouTube channel where you can get videos. Actually, that's a great way to share little clips. If you want to share, for instance, that fantastic conversation with Stephen Wolfram, you can clip that, send it to a friend. Please do. Let them know about intelligent machines. Of course, the best way to watch is to subscribe. Get your favorite podcast player, and you can get it for free every single week after we're done. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time on Intelligent Machines. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.